Chapter 1077. Not knowing why, these youths who usually looked lethargic and listless, but today they seemed especially high-spirited. Their footsteps were light, and their youthful faces were brimming with youthful and confident smiles. Their crimson-colored robes made them look extremely domineering. Those who originally wanted to open their mouths to mock when they heard that Devil-class students had arrived all shut their mouths. They looked at these students in astonishment. How could Devil-class students have such an aura? Just as they were in shock. Suddenly, a student who was walking in the middle of the students let out a soft ah. His calf instantly felt a sharp pain, and his entire body fell forward. The Devil-class students all lined up neatly and moved forward. With this fall, even the students in front were pushed forward a few steps. One by one, in a split second, the Devil class, which was originally lined up neatly, fell all over the ground, until the students at the back pushed Long Yunjian and the rest who were walking in front and were supported in time barely managed to stabilize the few of them. This fall caused the onlookers, who were originally shocked, to burst into laughter. Huh. Trash class is trash class. To think I was so shocked just now, I really thought they had been reborn. I'm dying of laughter. A bunch of trash still want to make a fool of themselves on stage. They can't even walk properly, hurry back to their mother's womb, and be born again. Tiske, don't say that this bunch of trash have the guts to participate in the interclass competition. This kind of spirit and courage is still worth learning. This is called spirit and courage. They're simply idiots. All sorts of discussions were going on, causing the student who fell to turn red in the face. He lowered his head. His eyes were already red. So, sorry, I didn't do it on purpose. Long Yunjian asked in a deep voice, what happened? I don't know. Something seemed to have hit my leg. I couldn't stand properly. The student lowered his head guiltily, stretching out his hand to roll up his trousers. Indeed, on his calf, there was a lump of greenish-purple bruise. Obviously, someone had purposely wanted to see Devil class make a fool of themselves and used a hidden weapon to attack them. Long Yunjian squinted his cold eyes. His vision followed the angle of the bruise and looked over. That direction was the direction of Intermediate Profound Class 2. The spectators in that direction were from other continents. Presumably, this hidden weapon should have been thrown over by Intermediate Profound Class 2. Long Yunjian lowered his eyes. Is it affected? The student immediately shook his head. No. Long Yunjian straightened up and returned to the front of the team. Assemble. The students quickly adjusted their positions and neatly followed behind Long Yunjian, walking to their positions. It was as if nothing had happened at all. On the contrary, I feel that this time, Devil class might be able to get a good ranking. Suddenly, one of the spectators voiced out a different opinion from the rest. It immediately attracted the attention of others. The one who spoke was none other than the representative of the Yuchi family, the second head of the Yuchi family. He was also one of the survivors from the Ling King tomb. Second leader Yuchi. They didn't drink today? How could the Devil class get a good ranking? From what I see, this Devil class will be eliminated in the first round of the preliminary competition today. Don't forget, Devil class has the World Group's vice group leader, Yiqing Luo. Yuchi's second master said it word by word. Chapter 1078. Vice leader of the World Group. They were no strangers to this mercenary group. After the battle in the Ling King's tomb, the World Mercenary Group had become completely famous. Yiqing Luo's name had also become the topic of discussion among various powerhouses. Yiqing Luo was in the Devil class. That was true. He might be able to get a good ranking by relying on Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo? It seems like I didn't see Yiqing Luo in Devil class. Someone looked around, scanning all the Devil class's students, but didn't see Yiqing Luo's figure at all. When the crowd heard this, they also started to look for Yiqing Luo, but he discovered that among the students in Devil class, there was no sign of Yiqing Luo at all. Yiqing Luo was actually not around. Yiqing Luo actually didn't participate in the competition. Second leader Yuchi, this is a class competition, not an individual battle. Even if Yiqing Luo is really as powerful as what you said, That's her problem alone. Look at that group of trash who can't even walk properly. Even if there were 10 I Ching Luos, there's no way to change the fact that their class is filled with trash. Also, the students from the devil class yesterday, all of them were severely injured. Yes. I was at the scene and personally saw them being carried back to their dormitories. I'm afraid that they're forcing themselves to participate in today's competition. Tis TSK. I really don't know if these trash from devil class have something wrong with their brains to force themselves to participate in the competition when they're seriously injured. I'm afraid this is the reason why Yi Ching Luo doesn't dare to participate in the competition. Yi Ching Luo doesn't have the face to take part in the competition. She doesn't even dare to appear. This is a wise choice. She's a young genius who's being talked about by all the big forces. She's the second overlord. If she loses here, won't she lose all her face? There were waves of sarcasm and ridicule. Second head Yuchi creased his brows as he shook his head in disbelief. Impossible. How could Yi Ching Luo not be participating in the competition? It was because Yi Ching Luo was going to take part in the competition that the patriarch specially sent him over as Yuchi's representative. Otherwise, was there a need for him, the second in command, to come personally for a class competition? One had to know. Yi Ching Luo had made a blood oath with Shangwan Liuli to win first place. If Yi Ching Luo didn't participate in the competition, it was highly possible that the devil class would not even be able to enter the preliminary round. So how would they be able to win? And at this moment, Shangwan Liuli, who was standing at the front row of Intermediate Profound Class 2, was also sizing up devil class's side. After confirming that he didn't see Yi Ching Luo's figure, his eyes revealed a complacent smile. The Lord Protector really did not lie to her. As expected, Yi Ching Luo would not take part in the competition. Then, devil class would definitely not be able to advance to the preliminary round. Facing everyone's questioning gazes, the students of the devil class did not change their expressions, as though they were already used to everyone's colored gazes. Their eyes were resolute, their backs straight, and they stood ramrod straight. In their minds were the words that Yi Ching Luo said to them before she left. She said, "The mission I'm giving you is to straighten your chests and take back your self-respect. Tell the world that you are not trash." She said, "I don't want to be spurned and despised by those people anymore. I don't want others to call you trash and humiliate you. Then, this is a battle for your dignity." She said, "For your dignity, for the honor of the devil class, and also for me. I believe that all of you, after going through the torturous training and difficult obstacles, you who have always stood here strong, are the best." Chapter 1079. Dong. The preliminary round's gong rang. Devil class's students stood up straighter than before. Pairs of bright eyes were filled with hope and unwavering luster. They looked towards Yun Xiang's direction, watching as he announced the first round's rules. The corners of his lips carried a confident smile. No one took a step back, and no one was disheartened. They would wait for Yi Ching Luo to return to bring Yi Fengyu back safely. The crowd's hearts trembled. Those who were obviously still childish and had the reputation of waste had a spirited smile on their faces. No, to put it more accurately, that smile was hope. Time, rewinding back to 5 o'clock, it was about 6 o'clock in the morning. All the students were dressed in the uniform which Yi Ching Luo had long prepared as they did their morning exercises in the courtyard. Yi Ching Luo pointed out each student's shortcomings and bad habits, one by one, teaching them how to avoid it. Just as she was saying that, she saw something like a black fog, like an arrow leaving the bow, attacking speedily. Yi Ching Luo's reaction was swift as she pushed the students in front of her and took a swift step backwards. But unexpectedly, that black fog seemed to have locked onto Yi Ching Luo as it charged towards her direction once again. Yi Ching Luo then saw clearly that was a lump, a black fog which looked like a bird. Blackbird. Yi Ching Luo's mind suddenly surfaced the words which she overheard from Shangwan Liuli last night. This was the summoning item which the dark forces used, Blackbird. Yiqing Luo stopped her evasive footsteps as she stretched out her hand towards that blackbird-shaped fog. Indeed, that blackbird landed in her palm. In a blink, it turned into a piece of white paper. Yiqing Luo opened it as she swept a glance at the contents as her expression sunk. "What's the matter?" Long Yunjian noticed the change in Yiqing Luo's expression as he walked over and took that letter. After taking a look, Long Yunjian's icy cold eyes seemed to be covered with a layer of frost. He frowned. "You bring everyone to participate in the competition, I'll go. The Dark Forces have specially named me. They want me to go." Yiqing Luo's voice was calm, without any emotions. "No way." Long Yunjian directly rejected. "I don't agree to let you go alone." "What's going on?" Xiao Jin asked when he saw that the two of them were in a deadlock. Yiqing Luo looked at him calmly. "Xiao Yu is in the hands of the Dark Forces. Let me go look for them now." "No." Xiao Jin had the same opinion as Long Yunjian. "The Dark Forces are sinister and cunning. They are full of tricks. You can't go." This was obviously a trap set by the Dark Forces. You still have to bring everyone to participate in the interclass competition. If you go, what will happen to the Devil class? Xiao Jin supported Yiqing Luo's shoulders with both hands. "Tell me, where is Xiao Yu locked up? I'll go. Devil class has you guys, and I believe that even if I'm not around, you guys will still be able to successfully enter the semifinals." Yiqing Luo laughed softly. "Moreover speaking, it's useless no matter which one you goes. The Dark Force's target is me." Xiao Jin and Long Yunjian's faces were ashen as they exchanged glances. He did not want Yiqing Luo to take the risk, but he didn't know how to stop it. Xiao Jin scratched his head and looked around. "Where's Dizun? Haven't any of you seen the Dizun? He left early in the morning. Perhaps the main courtyard needs him." Yiqing Luo woke up early in the morning, and there was no sign of DMO Xian beside her. Chapter 1080. I have no choice. Yiqing Luo knew that they were all concerned about her. However, the Dark Forces were using Yi Fengyu's life as a hostage. She had a compromise. Was this the reason why the Dark Forces kidnapped Yi Fengyu? Was it to force her to meet the Dark Forces alone so that she wouldn't be able to participate in the interclass competition? Last night, the Dark Protector had said that. He wanted the Devil class to be eliminated in the preliminary round. What did they do to Shangguan Liuli this time? Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased slightly as she spoke in a serious tone. "You don't have to worry about me. If there's really an accident, I have a way to protect my life. But you, during the competition, take note of Shangguan Liuli and the other students." Shangguan Liuli was not the only one who was attracted by the mysterious Inchi. There were also other students. In this other world, the strong were respected and strength was supreme. Every profound practitioner's thirst for power had already reached the point where they were willing to pay any price. Especially, the Dark Forces had long infiltrated the Heavenly Academy, turning the Heavenly Academy into a breeding ground for pure souls. Other than Shangguan Liuli, there must be many other students. In the end, they weren't able to change Yiqing Luo's mind, and they knew that they had no way to stop her. She could only tell DMO Xian about it after she saw him, placing all their hopes on DMO Xian. Yiqing Luo flipped over and leapt onto Shi Ju's back as Long Yunjian called out to her. She looked back, her expression calm. However, in the depths of his eyes, there was a bottomless whirlpool. Long Yunjian furrowed his brows and looked at her for a while before warning. "No matter what happens, don't be impulsive. Right now, you can't be impulsive." During the competition period, students were not allowed to fight or kill each other in private. Just like the attack on the Devil class, if it wasn't for the fact that the Dark Forces had taken away all the corpses of the students from the Devil class would then be disqualified from the competition because they had killed someone. Yi Fengyu was in the hands of the Dark Forces. His life was safe, but it was inevitable that he would be injured if Yiqing Luo were to act rashly and hurt someone. "I know," Yiqing Luo replied indifferently, "in a most inconspicuous abandoned temple in the Western continent. Behind the Buddha's statue was a tunnel. At this moment, the Buddha's statue seemed to be surrounded by a thin layer of transparent, fluorescent light. This was the fluorescence of a barrier. At the bottom of the tunnel, a slender figure was hung on a wooden frame with her limbs spread wide open. His greenish-white uniform was extremely disheveled, and there were a few obvious bloodstains on it. There were also a few spots on his clothes that were stained with blood that had congealed and stuck to his body. The youth was in a sorry state. His breathing was extremely shallow, and his vision was gradually blurring. He could faintly hear the voices of two women talking. He felt it was familiar, but he couldn't focus on identifying it. Just as he was about to lose consciousness, he heard the sound of something tearing through the air. A barbed whip landed ruthlessly on his body. The piercing pain caused the youth to scream out in pain. He sucked in a breath of cold air and regained his consciousness. Amidst the cold sweat, he saw a slender figure standing in front of him. The figure was petite and wore a black cloak. Under the dim light of the dungeon, it was impossible to see the person's face clearly. Does it hurt? Pain is the right thing to do. The woman's voice seemed to be filled with madness and intense resentment. The whip landed on his body again. Chapter 1081. Yifeng groaned in pain as his ears buzzed incessantly. The woman's shrill screams pierced his brain. Scream. Scream louder. Scream more miserably. When that good sister of yours comes over, let her enjoy your performance. The woman whipped Yifeng's body again. In her agitation, the cloak on her head slid down. A beautiful face was revealed, but its features were twisted and hideous. Yifeng's eyes widened. The pain in his body was no match for the pain and shock in his heart. He opened his mouth wide and shouted incredulously, Fourth sister. This woman was none other than his fourth sister who had been missing for many days. Yi Qingling, ever since Yi Qingling's profound jade heart was destroyed by Yi Qingluo and her meridians were broken. Yi Qingling was driven out of the Yi family in Three Spring City. He had never seen her again. It wasn't that Yifeng didn't think of asking second brother to find the whereabouts of fourth sister. But second brother didn't say anything after hearing it. And he was just a child who wasn't pampered. He didn't have the ability to look for fourth sister. It's been a few months. He didn't expect to see his fourth sister again in such a situation. After Yi Qingling heard his flabbergasted tone, she laughed maniacally. Did you think that I had my profound jade heart destroyed, my meridians broken, and I've already become a waste? After being chased out of the Yi family, I wouldn't be able to continue living? No. Fourth sister, of course I'm happy that you're alive. Father and old ancestor will. Yifeng hadn't finished his words when he was interrupted by Yi Qingling. Shut up. Don't mention those two old guys in front of me. As long as I have enough ability, I will destroy the Yi family. Destroy Three Springs sect. Just like now, I will destroy you. Yifeng's eyes widened as the luster gradually dimmed. Obviously, the current Yi Qingling was already possessed. She had been completely engulfed by hatred. Right now, she only had one goal in her mind, and that was revenge. Yifeng knew that no matter what he said, it would be in vain. The most important thing now was to think of a way to leave this place, or to stop his sister from coming here. Yi Qingling's hatred towards her sister had reached a state of madness. He could not let his sister fall into danger because of him. Following that, no matter how hard Yi Qingling's whip lashed, how ruthless, his body was in so much pain that he felt like he was going to suffocate in the next second. Yifeng didn't make another sound. He had bitten his lower lip, and the sweet blood was mixed in his mouth. Sure, let's see how long you can be stubborn for. Yi Qingling roared. The target of the whip did not make a single sound. To Yi Qingling, there was no spiritual pleasure at all. What she wanted to see, it was Yifeng's fearful expression and Yifeng's unceasing begging for mercy. She wanted Yi Qingluo to witness with her own eyes how her beloved brother was tormented by her, living a life worse than death. Yi Qingling's eyes were filled with madness. The wantonly black aura in his eyes seemed to want to devour her, but she was totally unaware of it. She soaked the long whip in the salt water and immediately pulled it out. The splashing salt water dripped onto Yi Fengyu. Yi Fengyu sucked in a breath of cold air and restrained himself for a long time before he cried out. Chapter 1082. Endure it. I like to see how long you can endure. Yi Qingling laughed crazily. Her facial features were hideous, extremely terrifying. Linger, an indifferent and sweet voice came from the darkness of the dungeon. Yi Fengyu seemed to see the entrance of the tunnel. A slender figure stood against the light. He couldn't see clearly, only heard the voice again. Don't play him to death. If he dies, there will be no tool to restrain Yi Qingluo. Yi Qingling loosened her fingers and gradually came back to her senses. She took a few steps back and smiled at the person behind her. Fortunately, Sister Protector reminded me. I will pay attention. Out of nowhere, Yi Qingling fished out a sharp dagger and pressed it against his face. I can't kill you, but I didn't say I can't make you wish you were dead. She laughed a few times and gently moved the dagger. The sharp dagger grazed his skin. Immediately, a thin piece of skin was cut off. Blood gushed out and soaked the dagger. Yi Fengyu was in so much pain that he sucked in cold air, breathing heavily. Yi Qingling laughed crazily. The black gas in her pupils reflected the blood on his body. She licked her red lips. He raised his dagger again and slashed at Yi Fengyu's body. I want to peel off your skin layer by layer. Let Yi Qingluo see, brother dressed in blood. The words stopped at the tip of his tongue. That sinister smile froze on his face for a moment. Lingo. The person standing at the entrance of the tunnel frowned and called out in a low voice. But there was no response from Yi Qingling. She immediately stood up and walked quickly towards her brother. Her whole person was stunned on the spot, only to see a red figure stood between Yi Qingling and Yi Fengyu. That crimson red dress, under the dim light of the fire, looked like rippling blood. It was extremely glaring, like a bloodthirsty Azura from hell, stepping on bloodlight. That beautiful face that could topple a city was expressionless. Her long and narrow eyes were like an iceberg, frosted over. Just staring at her lightly made her feel like she was frozen, unable to move. Yi Qingluo. The person in front of her was Yi Qingluo. What did she come in? Yi Qingling was also dumbfounded. Sister Protector, aren't you guarding the entrance? How did she? That person shook his head, also extremely terrified. Now, there was actually someone who had entered the tunnel right under her nose. However, she was completely unaware of it. Yi Qingluo. How much had she grown? Too scary. Yi Qingluo's long and narrow eyes were suffused with a cold glint. She didn't pay attention to the two of them. Instead, she turned around and looked at Yi Fengyu, who was covered in blood and had been tortured to the point that he didn't even look human. The whirlpools in her eyes suddenly became like a tornado. She raised her finger, took out a pill, and stuffed it into his mouth. Her fingers quickly knocked on his body a few times. Xiao Yu, don't be afraid. Big sister is here. Her voice was warm and sweet. It was as gentle as a warm breeze, entering Yi Fengyu's heart. He wasn't sure if it was the effect of the medicine or Yi Qingluo's arrival. Yi Fengyu only felt that the pain in his body instantly disappeared wherever the warm current passed through. His consciousness had also become much clearer. When he opened his eyes, he saw the smiling face in front of him. She smiled, and her relief was mixed with comfort. Yi Fengyu nodded. The luster in his eyes was firm. Chapter 1083. Yi Qingluo, you actually came. Yi Qingling quickly returned to the woman's back, looking at Yi Qingluo with fear and excitement. She had not expected that Yi Qingluo would actually give up on the interclass competition, which was a matter of life and death for her brother Feng Yu, even though she knew it was a trap. What a deep sibling relationship. Unfortunately, Yi Qingluo's sibling relationship was deep. In her eyes, it would only remind her of the time when Yi Qing Luo turned her into a cripple without any scruples. The black gas in Yi Qingling's eyes became more and more intense. The hatred in her heart had been completely swallowed by the profound yin qi. Yi Qing Luo naturally noticed this point, but she didn't take it to heart. Whether Yi Qingling was going to become food for the profound yin qi or not. Today, Yi Qingling must die here. You touched my brother. I naturally have to come and collect your corpse. Yi Qing Luo slowly turned around and stared at the two women in black robes in front of her. Her pink lips raised slightly, revealing a bloodthirsty sneer, full of murderous intent. Yi Qingling was frightened by that smile, trembling and stuttering. Want to kill us? You don't have this ability. Guardian sister, let's do it. Guardian sister? Yi Qing Luo raised her eyebrows. Her cold smile bloomed like a poppy. The terrifying storm in her eyes seemed to be sucking people in her vortex. Not only Yi Qingling's throat tightened. That woman also couldn't stop trembling at this time. Yi Qing Luo's gaze was filled with ridicule as she slowly walked towards them. With every step she took, the aura on her body was released. The violent and majestic energy made her blood-red dress flutter. Her long hair bared and brandished her claws. Yi Qingqian, you hate the Yi family so much that you even want to abandon your own name? Yi Qing Luo laughed out lowly. That burst after burst of laughter, like a cold hand, ruthlessly piercing one's heart. That woman in a cloak, other than Yi Qingqian, who else could it be? Yi Qing Luo sneered. Her eyes were filled with murderous intent. Her palm moved, and the glower flame fan was already in her hands. She couldn't be bothered to talk nonsense with these two. Yi Qingling had completely touched her reverse scale. She couldn't bear to see her younger brother get hurt. How dare Yi Qingling hurt him like this? And the students of the devil class, her companions. Did Yi Qingling really think that with Yi Qingqian and the dark forces as her backing, she could be unbridled? The rage in Yi Qing Luo's eyes surged, and her profound qi suddenly broke out of her body. The powerful energy seemed to have solidified the surrounding air. The unfurled, devouring flame fan rotated in the center of his palm. Like a ball of raging flames, it suddenly blossomed and burned. It turned into a fire dragon baring its fangs and brandishing its claws as it charged towards the two of them. Yi Fengyu's injuries wouldn't last long. Moreover, this was the territory of the Dark World. He had to end the battle quickly. Yi Qingqian widened her beautiful eyes in shock. Under this powerful aura, they didn't even have the strength to move. Seeing that the fire dragon was about to attack, Yi Qingqian's eyes sunk as she pursed her lips tightly. She mustered all her strength and flipped her palm. A cloud of black mist shot out from the palm of his hand. That mist turned into the shape of a black bird as it suddenly shot up to the horizon. More than a dozen black-robed Dharma protectors of the dark forces rushed out from all directions of the tunnel. Without a second word, they directly attacked towards Yi Qing Luo's direction. Chapter 1084. Yi Qing Luo's eyes turned cold as her lips curled into a faint smile. Long and narrow eyes, curved eyebrows, like she was smiling. But the emotions on that face made one's heart tremble inexplicably. More than 10 black-robed protectors swarmed over. A few streaks of black qi flashed past. The fire dragon created by Yi Qing Luo's feather fan was completely defeated. The flames were consumed in midair. Following that, those black-robed protectors burst out a dense, profound yin qi. Their entire bodies seemed to be shrouded in black smoke. Sister, Yi Fengyu was stunned as he looked at these black smoke-curling people in front of him in astonishment. These people, were they still human? Yi Qing Luo threw the glower flame fan in her hand into midair. Just as the glower flame fan was about to fall, her feet stepped on the ground, and her figure was light as she leapt into midair. She stretched out her hand and firmly held the fan handle. At the same time, when that feather fan opened up, a terrifying aura swept out, accompanied by a sharp, piercing explosion. An enchanting red light shot out from that open glower flame fan. Bang, bang, bang. A few explosions rang through the air, and soon after, the black smoke-like gas was covered by the red light. A few screams were heard as those black-robed protectors who attacked in mid-air were injured by this burst of chi. They directly fell from mid-air and fell to the ground. There were a few who reacted quickly and avoided that burst of chi at the same time when the black chi was defeated. Yiqing Luo did not give them any breathing space. A cold glint flashed in her eyes as her figure quickly spread out. Her footwork was strange, but in the blink of an eye, she had already moved close to the back of one of the black-robed protectors. The glower flame fan in her hand flashed a red light. Without a sound, it cut that black-robed protector's neck. Fresh blood gushed out. Yiqing Luo's figure, like a ghost, disappeared from everyone's line of sight. The black-robed protectors immediately focused and keenly sensed Yiqing Luo's existence. They couldn't believe it. Yiqing Luo's speed was actually so fast. Even they could not catch any traces of Yiqing Luo's figure. Didn't the Saint Law say that Yiqing Luo was just a young girl who had just advanced to Earth profound 4th grade? How could he possess such godly speed? Be careful. This slut has a set of footwork that no one can break. Yiqing Qian immediately warned. As he spoke, he heard the sound of a heavy object falling to the ground. Not far from the black robe protector whose neck had been slit by Yiqing Luo, another black robe protector had also fallen to the ground without any signs of life. However, none of them had sensed Yiqing Luo's presence. It was as if Yiqing Luo had already turned invisible, as though she was one with the air. The dozen or so black robe protectors were shocked. Damn it! Why didn't you tell me about this earlier? Unbreakable footwork? If we can't find her, how can we subdue her? The few black-robed guardians' hearts were palpitating with fear, deeply afraid that Yiqing Luo would appear behind them and silently take away their lives, so they couldn't help but grumble. Yiqing Qian remained silent for a moment and suddenly thought of something. Her gaze was like a sharp blade as she shot straight towards Yi Fengyu, who was tied to the rack. Catch Yi Fengyu! As long as Yi Fengyu is in our hands, she will have to obediently show herself. A way to restrain Yiqing Luo's strange footwork. The Saint Law didn't tell her. Now, they could only make use of Yi Fengyu to force Yiqing Luo to show herself. Otherwise, let Yiqing Luo use this method to sneak an attack. Chapter 1085. When a few black robe guardians heard that, they immediately reacted. The few of them flew swiftly towards the direction of a shelf. One of them opened his fingers and turned it into an eagle's claw, heading straight for Yi Fengyu's head. But unexpectedly, that young man who was originally tied tightly on the shelf was covered in blood and was in a semi-conscious state. He suddenly opened his eyes. That pair of clear eyes, there wasn't a hint of haziness in them. There was only a biting, cold, murderous intent. Yi Fengyu's limbs swiftly pulled out his hands from the long, untied iron chain. His palm moved, and profound chi broke out of his body. He directly slapped the face of the defenseless black-robed protector, who was at the forefront of the charge. Profound chi exploded downwards. The black-robed protector was immediately sent flying by the explosion. His entire head exploded. Yi Fengyu's breathing was hurried as he withdrew his hand, trembling nonstop. After this action, he was shocked to realize that his entire body was trembling because of fear. The first time he killed someone in such a brutal way. To a young man whose temperament was still immature, it indeed made him panic. But Yi Fengyu didn't feel any regret. Yiqing Luo knew that it was dangerous, but she resolutely chose to come to the Dark Forces territory to save him. He absolutely could not let himself become Yiqing Luo's burden. After killing one person, Yi Fengyu had not regained his senses. The other Black Robe Guardians charged towards Yi Fengyu with an extremely ugly expression. Just at this moment, a sweet voice was heard, neither fast nor slow, word by word. That voice was filled with an enchanting charm, but it made one shiver. Ah! A panicked cry was heard, accompanied by Yi-Ching Luo's bell-like laughter. Those few black-robed guardians' actions immediately stiffened. "Guardian who?" The black-robed guardian shouted anxiously. "Yi-Ching Luo, what are you trying to do? If you dare to hurt Guardian who, your little life will not be guaranteed." The few stiff black-robed guardians turned their heads in unison. They saw a blazing figure standing against the light at the entrance of the tunnel. Her 5 fingers locked onto Yi-Ching Qian's neck. A cold and bloodthirsty sneer hung on her face. "Protector who?" Yi-Ching Luo narrowed her eyes as she took a look at the pale-faced young lady. "You're indeed bewitching, but what shocked me is that you've only joined the Dark Forces for such a short period of time, and you actually have so many trusted aides who are willing to be used by you." Yi-Ching Luo guessed that Yi-Ching Jian should have joined the Dark Forces, becoming a guardian or elder of the Dark Forces. He just didn't expect it. Not only had Yi-Ching Qian become a guardian, it seemed like she had absolute prestige in front of the other guardians. "Yi-Ching Luo, you dare to touch me, try and see." Yi-Ching Qian's face was pale as she spoke harshly. Yi-Ching Luo raised her brows and laughed lowly. "I'm just giving you a taste of your own medicine. Didn't you want to use Xiao Yu to threaten me? So, I will use you to threaten the Dark Forces." Yi-Ching Qian's influence on the Dark Forces was so huge, which was something which Yi-Ching Luo had not expected. Since she had detected this, Yi-Ching Luo would naturally make use of it. She curled her lips and glanced at something out of the corner of her eyes. Then, he nodded his head in a barely audible manner. Yi-Ching Qian was the closest and noticed Yi-Ching Luo's little action. Her expression suddenly turned serious. She shouted at those black-robed protectors who were looking at her in fear. "Quick! Stop Yi Fengyu! You cannot let him leave." Chapter 1086. Yi-Ching Qian had just opened her mouth. A huge leopard with shiny black fur was behind them, as fast as lightning as it sped towards the entrance of the underground tunnel. On top of that leopard sat a young man who was covered in blood. "Enchantment. Quickly close the enchantment." Yi-Ching Qian's eyes were scarlet red as she commanded sternly. She knew very well that once Yi Fengyu, who was a threat to Yi-Ching Luo, escaped the dungeon, they had no tools to restrict Yi-Ching Luo. If Yi-Ching Luo summoned a divine dragon or a sacred beast for protection, they had no way to leave the underground tunnel alive. The situation that was supposed to be a sure win would be reversed. She was too careless, too overconfident. She had forgotten to close the enchantment after those black-robed guardians entered the underground tunnel. Yi-Ching Luo's fingers suddenly clenched tightly, causing Yi-Ching Qian to suffocate, unable to make a single sound. Hearing Yi-Ching Qian's voice stopped abruptly. These black-robed guardians' attention was slightly diverted towards Yi-Ching Qian. To them, protecting Yi-Ching Qian was the most important thing. If anything happened to Yi-Ching Qian, none of them could escape. It was this moment of distraction. Shiju had already brought Yi Fengyu and escaped the moment the enchantment closed. Stupid idiot! Yi-Ching Qian was so angry that her entire body was trembling. Her hoarse throat spat out 2 words with difficulty. But the strength of the grip on her neck made her unable to speak at all. Yi-Ching Luo lowered her eyes, gazing at Yi-Ching Qian, whose face was flushed red from holding her breath. Her beautiful eyes filled with hatred and viciousness. Her lips curled into a cold arc. "Yi-Ching Qian now. Let's calculate. How should I help Xiao Yu to get back the injuries he had suffered?" Yi-Ching Qian's eyes were filled with fear. She wanted to struggle, but she couldn't muster up any strength. Her eyes widened as she refused to admit defeat. "Yi-Ching Luo, Yi Fengyu's injuries were all caused by you. And Devil Class, those useless things, it's all because of you that they suffered such treatment." Yi-Ching Luo's gaze was as cold as ice. Her smile froze. Her slender fingers mercilessly pinched hard. The sudden strength made Yi Qingqian's throat tighten as she coughed violently. Not long after, that delicate face gradually flushed red and turned purple. Protector Hu. Yi Qing Luo. You'd better release Guardian Hu immediately. Otherwise, don't even think of leaving this place alive. The expressions of the other black-robed protectors changed drastically, and they were as anxious as ants on a hot pan. Yiqing Luo, on the other hand, stopped increasing her strength as she slowly raised her eyes and gazed at those restless black-robed guardians as her lips curled into a sweet smile. Don't tell me that if I let her go, I will be able to leave here alive. Hearing this, the black-robed protector was overjoyed and immediately nodded. Yes, as long as you release Guardian Hu, you can leave this place. You think I'm naive? Yiqing Luo's smile became even more enchanting. Her slender fingers gently caressed the neck of Yiqing Qian, who was on the verge of fainting. If I let her go, I really won't be able to leave. What do you want? The black-robed protector looked nervously at the still-breathing Yiqing Qian and softened his tone to discuss the deal with her. Yiqing Luo's brows rose as she felt increasingly curious. What capabilities did Yiqing Qian have? In a short period of time, he had gained such a high position in the Dark Forces. The Dark Organization did not limit the number of Guardian Elders. Chapter 1087. Among those Guardians, or Elders, everyone had the same status. Then, how could Yiqing Qian make so many Guardians so nervous? Yiqing Luo pondered for a moment and slowly dragged the suffocating and limp Yiqing Qian directly towards the entrance of the tunnel. She curled her lips and said coldly, "Open the enchantment." The black-robed protectors looked at each other, then at each other. But no one moved an inch. Yiqing Luo laughed. "You don't even dare to open the enchantment. How can you talk about letting me go? You people from the Dark Forces really can't believe what you say." After that, she shook her head helplessly. "Then, before I die, I will torture her to death first." "No, let's open the enchantment. Let's open." The black-robed guardian immediately opened his mouth to stop her. One of the black-robed guardians immediately headed towards the direction of the entrance. From time to time, he turned his head and looked at Yiqing Luo, paying attention to whether she was playing any tricks. The black-robed guardian had just walked to the entrance when Yiqing Ling, who was shivering at the side, suddenly shouted, "Don't open the enchantment. If she leaves the tunnel, all of us will die." The black-robed guardian paused and looked at Yiqing Ling, his voice hoarse. "Nothing must happen to Guardian Hu. Without her, there's still me, isn't it? I can be the Guardian Hu. Just by sacrificing herself, she can subdue Yiqing Luo. Then she can complete the task which his lordship has entrusted to her." Yiqing Ling pursed her red lips tightly. She didn't want to let Yiqing Luo go. She wanted to see Yiqing Luo walking towards death. How could she be willing to let Yiqing Luo leave so easily? Even if Yiqing Qian died, so what? She had already joined the Dark Forces. Why not replace Yiqing Qian to become the second Guardian Hu? Moreover, do you think Yiqing Luo, this little slut, will really comply with your deal? Don't forget, none of you can break that strange footwork of hers. Even my sister, she can't see through Yiqing Luo's footwork. Moreover, once you really open the enchantment, she will definitely kill my sister directly and then use her footwork to leave the tunnel. Even if you want to chase after her, I'm afraid you don't have this ability." Yiqing Ling's words were extremely reasonable. The black-robed protector also began to hesitate. Yiqing Jian, who had not completely fainted, felt a chill in her heart. She didn't expect that her younger sister would actually want to replace her current position. It was rare for her to have a close sisterly relationship. However, he didn't expect that this so-called deep love was just mutual exploitation. Yiqing Luo seemed to have sensed Yiqing Qian's self-deprecation. She lowered her eyes, which were deep and dark, and contained a terrifying storm. She stared at Yi Qing Qian for a long while before her lips curled up in disdain and her voice was cold. People like you never know how to give your heart to others. So how can you talk about true feelings? Her voice paused for a moment before she continued. People like you will never be able to have true feelings. Yi Qing Qian's breathing gradually slowed down as her complexion turned from purplish-green back to pale white. She panted heavily as her beautiful eyes stared venomously at Yi Qing Luo, saying word by word, "If you have the ability, kill me now, to be able to drag you along with me before I go to hell. I can die without regrets." "Oh, since when did eldest sister have such guts?" Yi Qing Luo cried out in shock as she clicked her tongue and couldn't stop praising. "Eldest sister has such backbone. If I don't fulfill eldest sister's wish, wouldn't that be disrespecting eldest sister?" Chapter 1088. She chuckled, her eyes curved. "What fourth sister did to little you earlier? I can use it." Her fingertips moved. A sharp dagger was drawn under the fan handle. Her pink lips curved slightly. The cold luster in her eyes seemed to be able to absorb everything in the world. The dagger moved lightly, grazing the skin on Yi Qing Qian's neck. A thin layer of skin was directly peeled off. Yi Qing Qian cried out in pain. Fresh blood gushed out. "Fourth sister wants little you to taste the pain of peeling off his skin, then I will let eldest sister taste this pain first." Yi Qing Luo smiled charmingly. The expression on her face was calm and composed, as if peeling off her skin and pulling out her tendons was a normal thing. Yi Qing Qian kept howling in pain. The pain of her flesh being peeled off was simply unbearable. She struggled, trying to break free from Yi Qing Luo's torture. But the moment she moved, her body was grazed by the dagger, leaving streaks of blood marks. Finally, Yi Qing Qian could not bear the pain. Tears rolled down from the corner of her eyes. Her voice was hoarse and trembling. "Open the enchantment. Open the enchantment." Yi Qing Luo flipped her palm. The bloody dagger became clean in an instant, shining with a dazzling luster. The dagger was kept back into the glower flame fan. She smiled, her eyes calm. "You should have been obedient. Why are you so stubborn? To suffer such torture, those who don't know would think you like to suffer such treatment." Yi Qing Qian was trembling with anger. That black-robed protector walked to the entrance of the tunnel, listened to the command, and was about to open the enchantment. At the same time, Yi Qing Luo's eyes flashed a gloomy sneer. In her heart, she had already silently recited the teleportation chant, ready to bring Yi Qing Qian out of the enchantment. As long as she broke through this enchantment, the dark forces would not be able to trap her. Suddenly, the entire tunnel, the wind and clouds surged, the weather changed. A hurricane rose in the tunnel. The vast and majestic aura caused the entire tunnel to emit a rumbling sound that shook the mountains and the earth. Yi Qing Luo suddenly felt an invisible pressure, making her somewhat breathless. Her eyes sunk. An ominous premonition surged from the bottom of her heart. Looking down, she saw Yi Qing Qian, who was being dragged by her. A strange sneer appeared on the corner of her mouth. Her beautiful eyes were clear and blood-red. He laughed savagely and savagely. "Your time has come." Yi Qing Luo had yet to react. She could only feel a surge of profound qi coming straight at her face. That strong, imposing manner made even Yi Qing Luo panicky. The last incantation of teleportation just happened to be spat out silently. Her figure flashed and disappeared in the blink of an eye. However, when she wanted to forcefully bring Yi Qing Jin away, she was restrained by an invisible force. Yi Qing Luo could only give up. When her figure appeared and stood in a corner of the tunnel, she raised her eyes and looked over. She saw that the place where she was standing just now had a huge crater. If she had dodged in time just now, she was afraid that now, the one who would be smashed to pieces would be her. Who could it be? It actually possessed such great power. Even from DMO Xian's body, she had never sensed such powerful energy. Lord Saint Technique. A few black-robed protectors respectfully called out in unison, then knelt down in the direction of the tunnel entrance. Saint Technique? One of the four great Saint Techniques under the King of Darkness? Yi Ching Luo frowned, followed their line of sight vigilantly, and looked over. She saw a tall figure standing at the entrance of the tunnel. Chapter 1089. A black cloak covered his entire body. The black brocade clothes under the cloak were of high quality and were embroidered with strange totems with golden threads. The pair of eyes under the cloak were as cold as a poisonous snake, revealing an evil chill. Such a person, just by looking at his appearance, one could tell that he was not someone to be trifled with. A bunch of trash, an indifferent voice, without any emotion. The holy technique's gaze swept past and saw the bodies of those black-robed protectors exploded. Instantly, the entire tunnel was filled with flesh and blood. A strong smell of blood filled the air. Yi Ching Luo's brows tightened. The tunnel was too narrow, and she had tried her best to avoid the splattered flesh and blood. But there was still a small amount of flesh and blood that landed on her. Her brows tightened even more as she stared at that person vigilantly. This holy technique, it was different from the one she met outside the Ling Ling King's tomb. This holy technique was obviously crueler, more arrogant and more arrogant. He was extremely confident in himself. Take his act of directly killing these black-robe protectors as an example. It was enough to prove his confidence in himself. He was declaring war on Yi Ching Luo. He didn't need these useless people who dragged him down to help. He alone was enough to deal with her. The dark forces were well aware of some of her abilities, such as the divine dragon and the white tiger. And this holy technique, knowing that she had the protection of the divine dragon and white tiger, was still so confident. Then there were only two answers. First, he didn't get the news from the dark forces and didn't know that she had the divine dragon and white tiger, so he dared to be so arrogant. Second, his ability was so strong that he didn't fear the existence of the divine dragon and white tiger. The current situation was afraid that it was the second answer. The relationship between the holy technique and Yi Ching Qian was obviously not ordinary. If Yi Ching Qian was around, it was impossible that the holy technique didn't know anything about her. Just when Yi Ching Luo was extremely vigilant, the holy technique lowered his eyes and stared at the woman in his arms after killing the other black-robed protectors. Does it hurt? Yi Ching Qian was drowsy, and her beautiful eyes looked at the man who was hugging her as her lips curled into a relaxed smile. Yes. The Saint Law's gaze turned cold as his line of sight fell upon Yi Ching Ling, who was curled up in the corner and retching incessantly. Yi Ching Ling was stunned by his gaze, and her delicate body trembled as she looked at the holy technique. You take care of her. His ice-cold voice carried a chilling aura. If there's even the slightest mistake, this holy technique will make you wish you were dead. Yi Ching Ling shuddered as she walked towards them with weak legs. The minute they got close, the holy technique had already pressed Yi Ching Qian's entire body onto her. Yi Ching Ling barely managed to stabilize her body and carefully hugged Yi Ching Qian as she half-knelt on the ground. She placed Yi Ching Qian on her body before she dared to look at the holy technique. Give her medicine. Saying that, he threw down a medicine bottle and directly walked towards Yi Ching Luo's direction. Yi Ching Ling trembled as she clutched the bottle tightly. Looking at Yi Ching Qian, who was lying on her lap, her face was filled with fear. She had been with the dark forces for almost 2 months. Naturally, he knew the status of the 4 great saint techniques in the dark forces. She had never expected this. His sister actually had such a close relationship with the holy technique. Just now, when the holy technique looked at her, his gaze was cold and bone-chilling. It seemed that as long as he moved his eyelashes slightly, he could take away her life. Chapter 1090. Yi Ching Qian gave a light harumph and didn't answer her question. Yi Ching Ling was so scared that she started crying. Sister, I'm sorry. I was wrong just now. I was blinded by greed because I wanted to live on. Seeing that Yi Qing Qian was still ignoring her, Yi Qing Ling felt uneasy. Big sister, can you forgive me? I know I'm heartless and unscrupulous. I've forgotten my sister's kindness to me. She unscrewed the bottle, and, as she applied medicine for Yi Qing Qian, she sobbed softly. It was Big Sister who gave Ling a second life. It was Big Sister who gave Ling a chance to live. Even if Ling were to go through fire and water for Big Sister, I would never be able to repay Big Sister's kindness. The cold ointment stopped the pain in his body. Yi Qing Qian's consciousness had gradually recovered by more than half. She took a glance at the crying Yi Qing Ling and hid away the disgust and ridicule in her eyes. All right, I know your character very well. I hope you can remember what you have said. If there is a next time, don't blame me for not caring about our sisterly relationship. Yi Qing Ling said lightly. Yi Qing Ling's eyes lit up and she nodded happily. There will never be a next time. Initially, she thought that Yi Qing Qian's position in the dark forces was based on her own ability. Thus, the idea of replacing him sprouted in his mind. But now, Yi Qing Ling completely understood. The reason why the other guardians were so concerned about her was not because her life was more important than theirs. Instead, Yi Qing Qian belonged to the sacred technique. Yi Qing Jian didn't pay any more attention to Yi Qing Ling and immediately fixed her beautiful eyes in the direction of the holy technique, her eyes flowing with complacency and ruthlessness. As long as the holy wolf didn't abandon her, Yi Qing Luo would definitely die today. You, injured guardian who? Wolf Saint Technique's gaze fell onto Yi Qing Luo, his gaze icy cold. Yi Qing Luo was secretly speculating on the relationship between this holy technique and Yi Qing Qian. This holy technique didn't seem to be because of the King of Darkness's mission, but for Yi Qing Qian. Could it be that the kidnapping of Yi Feng Yu and the attack on the Devil class had nothing to do with the King of Darkness, but because of Yi Qing Qian's request? That was also a possibility, because what Yi Qing Qian wanted to do the most, he would completely destroy her. He had destroyed everything for her and made her wish she was dead. Losing the Devil class competition and seeing the little brother that he cared about die in front of his own eyes. This was definitely a heavy blow to her. Yi Qing Qian had this idea. You're smart, but too smart. The wolf's sacred technique walked toward her slowly. Every step he took brought along a majestic and powerful wave of air. It forced Yi Qing Luo to take a step back. Protector, who is my partner. Since you hurt my woman, you should pay the price. I'm sure you know the rules. Protector Lang smiled coldly. Looking at Yi Qing Luo's flustered look, he couldn't help but laugh. Yi Qing Luo probed. Are you here on King of Darkness's orders? Or to kill me, to avenge her? Trying to get information out of me? Wolf Saint Technique sneered as he closed in on Yi Qing Luo. He then bent over slightly, looking down at Yi Qing Luo, who was unable to escape because of his strong qi. But his next sentence still answered Yi Qing Luo's question. Killing you. Not only is it to avenge Guardian Hu, it is also to complete his lord's orders. You're lying. Yi Qing Luo narrowed her eyes, try her best to ignore the extreme cold intent emitting from Wolf Saint Technique, restraining the trembling in her voice. Now, she was almost completely sure. Wolf Saint Technique would definitely come. Chapter 1091. If by now, Yi Qing Luo still couldn't tell the relationship between Wolf Saint Dharma and Yi Qing Qian, then her brain must have been really messed up. She had underestimated Yi Qing Qian's charm. But Yi Qing Qian should have her own skills towards men. Otherwise, how would Yi Qing Qian be able to quickly hook up with Lung Feng Ying after abandoning Lung Feng Hua? Even if she and Lung Feng Ying were in a mutually beneficial relationship. But to be able to make Lung Feng Ying cooperate with her, that was Yi Qing Qian's ability. She had not expected that after arriving at the Dark Forces, Yi Qing Qian could still use her charm to hook up with Wolf Saint Dharma. No wonder those black-robed guardians were so worried that Yi Qingqian would be killed by her. If Yi Qingqian were to die, they would definitely suffer Wolf Saint Dharma's wrath. How can you tell that this Saint Dharma is lying? Wolf Saint Dharma's eyebrows curved in interest, as though he was interested in Yi Qing Luo's words. This feeling, to Yi Qing Luo, was extremely disgusting. Like he was teasing a pet. Yi Qing Luo pursed her lips as her vision was fixed on Yi Qingqian, surveying the surroundings, searching for a chance to leave. While replying to him, she tried to delay the time. If I die, King of Darkness's plan will come to nothing. She was the most important chess piece in King of Darkness's plan. If she died, even if he obtained the profound jade heart in her body, probably it wouldn't be of much use. So, King of Darkness will not let you kill me. This was Yi Qing Luo's judgment. Her life, to King of Darkness, still had some value. If Wolf Saint Dharma really killed her, then it would spoil King of Darkness's plan. Or could it be, Wolf Saint Dharma was willing to sacrifice everything for Yi Qingqian? Are you threatening this Saint Dharma? The interest in Wolf Saint Dharma's tone was getting thicker. This last was interesting. Not only was she intelligent, her reaction was also extremely fast. With just a few words, she was able to pinch the opponent's weakness. This kind of person, if she was allowed to continue living in this world. If she grew up, how terrifying would she be? Wolf Saint Dharma, Yi Qingqian, who had applied the ointment, had been paying attention to their situation. Now hearing Wolf Saint Dharma's interesting tone, his heart trembled. Her pretty face immediately paled, and her beautiful eyes stared unblinkingly at Lang Xingfa. She is very cunning. You must not be fooled. The wolf Xingfa glanced sideways at her worried face and chuckled. You're worried that I'll fall for her? Yi Qingjian didn't reply. She was indeed worried. Yi Qing Luo could even capture the high and mighty overlord, not to mention this wolf saint technique which allowed her to seduce him so easily. You and her are different, the wolf saint Law said in a comforting tone. Following that, his gaze shifted back to Yi Qing Luo. The more intelligent a person is, the person who will threaten this sacred technique usually won't live for long. His gaze made Yi Qing Luo shudder. His body seemed to be frozen by frost, unable to move. Wolf Saint Technique suddenly stretched out his hand and pinched Yi Qing Luo's lower jaw. He forced her to look into his eyes. The oppressive feeling from the Wolf Saint Technique made Yi Qing Luo's body tremble uncontrollably. Even if she met a cultivator who was several profound grades higher than her, Yi Qing Luo had never been afraid of anyone. But Wolf Saint Dharma made her develop such a feeling. Yes, she was afraid. Afraid of the Wolf Saint Technique's approach. Chapter 1092. I would like to see, after I kill you, how will his lordship deal with me after his plan fails. The Wolf Saint Technique's palm slowly slid from her jaw to her slender neck. His cold and terrifying eyes were emitting a bloodthirsty, murderous intent. He was avenging Yi Qingqian. To avenge her earlier, by strangling Yi Qingqian's neck. Yi Qing Luo held her breath. The strong pressure made her have no chance to resist. This wolf saint magic. He was at least a sky profound cultivator. Only a supreme expert above the sky profound realm would be able to give her such a strong pressure. A drop of cold sweat dripped down from her forehead. This drop of cold sweat fell into Wolf Saint Magic's eyes. It made the smile in his eyes even more bloodthirsty, as it was filled with scarlet. His 5 fingers gradually tightened. Beside her ears, she could still hear his low sneer, everything that you have done to protect her, who, I will make her pay for it one by one. Yi Qing Luo's pupils contracted. He wasn't joking. He really wanted to kill her. Could it be he really didn't care about the King of Darkness's plan? Didn't the dark forces all serve the King of Darkness, obeying his every command? This Wolf Saint Magic and the King of Darkness. What was their relationship? She didn't have time to think about these questions. She absolutely could not lose her life here. The Devil class's students were still waiting for her to return. If DMO Xian knew that she came to the Dark Forces territory alone, he would definitely be worried. His current identity was Supreme Mo. She couldn't let Mo Xian's identity, which he had painstakingly built, be destroyed in her hands. Absolutely. She couldn't die. Her half-squinted eyes gradually surfaced a layer of determined luster. She bit her lower lip so hard that it started to bleed. The palm on his neck tightened its grip even more. Yiqing Luo took a deep breath and forced herself to hold on to her will as she opened her 5 fingers. A bolt of lightning-like current ran through her slender fingers, emitting a zzz sound of electricity. Wolf Saint Magic was stunned by this sound. He immediately loosened his grip and looked sideways at the direction of the lightning. Making use of this gap, Yiqing Luo lifted her leg and kicked fiercely towards Wolf Saint Magic's abdomen. The force was so strong that even the Saint Technique, who was as tall as a wolf, groaned in pain. His fingers dropped from Yiqing Luo's neck, whereas Yiqing Luo had already stepped on his chest as she flew up. His footwork moved quickly, and the flowing electric current in his hand suddenly formed an electric ball-shaped object. Thunderclap Technique. She flipped her palm, and an electric ball directly smashed towards the Wolf Saint Technique. Because of Yiqing Luo's set of combat skills, she had defeated the Wolf Saint Technique, which was continuously retreating. He felt humiliated in his heart, and a strong, profound qi broke out of his body and was about to attack Yiqing Luo. A bolt of lightning struck the top of his head. Zzz, the electric current exploded on the Wolf Holy Law's body. Rumble. Lightning flashed and thunder rolled. The electric current lingered on the Wolf Saint Law's body, constantly flowing with electricity. At the same time, Yiqing Luo swiftly summoned Chi-Chi and leaped onto Chi-Chi's back, break through the enchantment, and leave the tunnel. Chi-Chi let out a tiger roar. Its tiger claws lashed out. The huge tiger body directly flew towards the entrance of the tunnel. Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Ling saw this and held Yiqing Qian's hand in panic. Sister, you can't let Yiqing Luo escape. She can't leave. Yiqing Qian didn't panic at all. On the contrary, her lips curled into a cold arc coming to the dark forces territory. Still want to leave so easily. Chapter 1093. At the entrance of the tunnel, a ray of white glow dispersed. A transparent barrier separated Chi-Chi from the rest. After Chi-Chi was knocked away, it swiftly opened up its tiger claws and slashed towards that white glow. However, when the white sharp tiger claws got close to that white glow, it still couldn't avoid the consequence of being sent flying again. Enchantment. The enchantment conjured by the dark forces. Even Chi-Chi, the sacred white tiger, was unable to break the enchantment. To take the opportunity to escape from the tunnel, it was probably impossible. Yiqing Luo pursed her lips and forced herself to calm down. She stopped Chi-Chi from ramming against the enchantment again. This enchantment, Chi-Chi was unable to break it. Forcefully ramming against it would instead cause Chi-Chi to get injured. Damn enchantment. Her understanding towards enchantment wasn't deep, and she could only rely on her own ability to conjure a protective enchantment. As for breaking the enchantment, she had no idea how to do it. How to break the enchantment and leave this place. Could it be that she had to wait for Mo Xian to find out from the devil class students that she had gone to save Yi Fengyu alone and rush over to save her? No, no way. If Mo Xian came, it would be easy for the main courtyard to discover his identity. Moreover, she wasn't someone who liked to place her hopes on others. She had to resolve the crisis before Mo Xian rushed over. Just as Yiqing Luo was pondering, she suddenly felt an oppressive pressure coming from her back. Yiqing Luo felt a chill down her spine as she felt a sharp pain in her head. She quickly regained her senses and patted Chi-Chi's fur. Chi-Chi leaped up and dashed towards the other side of the tunnel, avoiding the attack from behind. Yiqing Luo turned her head and saw Wolf Saint Magic, who was chasing after her under the Thunder Crash arts. Wolf Saint Magic wasn't affected by the Thunder Crash arts. Only the cloak on his body had been torn to shreds by the thundercrash arts. The cloak covering his head had also been torn into pieces. He looked extremely disheveled. Yiqing Luo finally saw Wolf Saint Magic's face clearly. That was a 40-over-year-old middle-aged man. His facial features were dignified, emitting a chilly aura. Especially that pair of sinister, venomous eyes. Just one look, and one's heart would tremble. Little girl. Wolf Shengfa's voice was filled with thick, murderous intent and anger. You're the first person who has dared to put me in such a difficult position. He laughed coldly in a low voice. His tall and slender body trembled with laughter. The imposing manner became increasingly majestic, almost oppressing Yiqing Luo, as if 1,000 catty boulder was pressing down on her shoulders. Her heart was trembling, and her eyes were filled with disbelief. The thunderclap incantation was actually unable to cause any damage to him. This was the reward for clearing the second floor of the Purgatory Tower. At the same time that she was training the students of the Devil class, she did not forget to enter the spiritual energy treasure ground and enter the Azure Dew bracelet. Under Old Man Song's guidance, she stabilized her profound level and increased her strength. Of course, he did not forget to challenge the second floor of the Purgatory Tower. The reward for the second level was the Thunderclap incantation. Although she had just started practicing, she could only release an electric ball the size of a fist. But Old Man Song had said it before. Even if it was just a small electric ball, if it were to smash onto a profound practitioner of the Earth Profound Realm, it would definitely cause that profound practitioner to be unable to move for 3 days. But for the Wolf Saint technique, it only tore his cloak and didn't even leave any external injuries on his body. This Wolf Saint technique, just how powerful was he? Wolf Saint technique looked at the astonished young master as he gave a cold smile. Following that, his palm wind moved. That palm wind turned into a raging hurricane, bringing along a strong air wave as it swept across. The entire tunnel started to shake. Chapter 1094. Yiqing Luo was pressured by that burst of energy, and her body became unstable as she tumbled down from Chi-Chi's back. Before she could react, Wolf Saint Magic's figure had already enlarged in front of her. His motive, it was to force her and Chi-Chi to separate. Chi-Chi was a sacred beast, and its speed was unparalleled. But she was an Earth Profound 4th grade cultivator. Even if she possessed the so-called strange footwork, Wolf Saint Magic was confident that he could find her flaw. Wolf Saint Magic indeed had this thought. Among all the martial arts in the world, only speed could not be defeated. Then, his speed, was it faster than hers? How? Chi-Chi saw its own master being approached by the enemy. It immediately pounced over, trying to tear Wolf Saint Magic into pieces. However, the moment it pounced in the direction of the Wolf Saint technique, it suddenly stopped. Wolf Saint Magic didn't turn back, but raised his palm. Instantly, a white fluorescent light shot out. Chi-Chi's huge tiger body suddenly froze in midair. Its claws and head seemed to have collided with something. Immediately, that transparent barrier was faintly discernible. Barrier. Another barrier. Chi-Chi held a few times as it gathered all its strength and charged towards Wolf Saint Magic's direction. But every time they charged, they would crash into the barrier. Even the sacred beast's sharp claws were unable to break the barrier. No wonder Wolf Saint Magic dared to kill all the black robe protectors after arriving at the underground tunnel. He didn't need to worry about the sacred beast White Tiger, nor the existence of the divine dragon, because his barrier could completely restrain the sacred beast or the divine dragon. Even if the sacred beast or the divine dragon could break the barrier in the end, there was no harm. Before the barrier was broken, Wolf Saint Magic could totally toy with Yiqing Luo in the palm of his hand. Yiqing Luo only felt her entire body turning cold as her back pressed against the uneven wall. Her charming eyes were fixated on Wolf Saint Magic. The glower flame fan in her hand was ready to strike. Wolf Saint Magic closed in on her 2 steps away, stopping and looking at her, scared. Yiqing Luo kept silent. Wolf Saint Magic laughed instead of getting angry. His eyes were filled with interest. To teach a proud and unyielding lass to such a fearful degree, this Saint Magic feels carefree. His aggressive gaze made her feel nauseous. It wasn't a look of interest. Instead, it was the kind of twisted expression one would feel when one saw one's prey struggling and struggling in one's hands, yet unable to escape from one's grasp. He moved closer to her and pressed his lips against her ear. A cold and frosty aura sprayed on her skin. This made Yiqing Luo feel even more disgusted. Disgusting goosebumps appeared all over his body. The Wolf Saint Lawn noticed this and deliberately stretched out his finger to stroke the goosebumps on her neck. He chuckled. "So sensitive. Do you hate the Saint Law that much?" His voice became deeper and deeper. The middle-aged man's aura carried a bone-chilling coldness. Yiqing Luo's scalp went numb as she endured the disgust and turned her head away. The gourd flame fan in his hand had already been infused with profound energy, ready to find a suitable opportunity to strike him in one blow. But he heard a cold voice with a smile in his ear. "Who taught you the thunderclap incantation? Thunderclap arts?" Yiqing Luo's eyes sunk. Why did he suddenly ask about the thunderclap incantation? Could it be? Is the thunder crash art the same as teleportation? After using it, people will immediately recognize me? Then what was the reward she had obtained after going through so many hardships in the Purgatory Tower? Chapter 1095. Pooh. Yiqing Luo spat impatiently. Playing with words in front of her? She had played this trick countless of times. Could he consider sparing her life? He only said he would consider, not sure. Even if he was sure, she might not believe it. Wolf Saint Magic wiped the saliva off his face. A murderous intent flashed past his eyes. But he still suppressed the anger in his heart and spat out. "Who taught you the thunderclap incantation? Where's that person? Where is the secret to the thunderclap incantation? Leave it to me." Yiqing Luo frowned slightly. His 3 consecutive questions clearly expressed his desire for the thunderclap incantation. This might be the chance for her to delay the time and survive. As long as she had something he was interested in, he could not kill her. As though he had seen through her inner thoughts, Wolf Saint Magic's eyes turned hazy. Suddenly, his broad palm landed on Yiqing Luo's shoulder. 5 fingers exerted a little force. A burst of profound qi instantly scattered the crimson outfit she was wearing. The belt loosened and half of her indecent clothes were scattered, revealing her fair shoulder. Yiqing Luo panicked. Her eyes widened in disbelief. "How dare you?" He actually wanted to use the most despicable means to force her to reveal the thunderclap incantation. It wouldn't take her life, but it was more unacceptable than killing her. Yiqing Luo's charming eyes were cold. Profound qi wrapped around the glower flame fan and flipped it swiftly in her palm. A wind blade went straight for Wolf Shengfa's neck. Wolf Saint Magic snorted lightly. Waste of energy. With a light lift of his finger, he easily blocked the wind blade. Yiqing Luo took the opportunity to display her footwork and escape from Wolf Saint Magic's restraint in a few steps. She speedily ran towards Chi-Chi's direction, condensing profound qi on her feather fan and drew out countless wind blades. The bewitching red glow was like a sharp blade, cutting on that transparent barrier. At the same time, she silently called Chi-Chi's name, attempting to summon Chi-Chi back into the pet space. But no matter how the red sharp blades struck the barrier, it was still unable to move. The barrier was still firm and indestructible. He couldn't summon Chi-Chi back to the pet space either. A boundary was a space that separated the space within the boundary from the outside world. She wouldn't be able to summon her battle pets if they were in different parallel spaces. What was going on with this barrier? How could it be so strong? If even the people of the dark forces could create such a powerful barrier, they would be able to do so. Then there was no need for them to resist at all. The dark forces could just open up a barrier and attack the upper realm. Roar, roar. Chi-Chi did not give up and try to break free from the barrier. Yi-Ching Luo watched as Chi-Chi was bounced back by the enchantment again and again. The huge tiger head and tiger eyes were scarlet red, and there were traces of blood dripping down along the white fur. Her heart tightened as she looked at Chi-Chi comfortingly. He signaled for it not to forcefully crash into the barrier for the time being. At this moment, the Wolf Saint technique once again stuck close to him like a ghost. "Little lass, you haven't been impregnated yet, right?" Wolf Saint technique sneered coldly as his gaze swept past her fair skin and his large palm directly touched it. "Either tell me the whereabouts of the thunderclap incantation, or this saint technique will use. This saint technique's method to make you say it obediently." Yi-Ching Luo only felt a wave of disgust. Chapter 1096. The Wolf's Sacred Technique said disapprovingly, "It's very common for a man to have a few women outside. Protect her who is an obedient woman, so she naturally understands this sacred technique's intentions." He raised his voice slightly when he said this. It was obvious that he had purposely told this to Yi-Ching Qian, who was not too far away. Yi-Ching Qian suppressed the fluster in her heart as she forced a gentle smile on her face. "Yes, I believe Wolf Saint Dharma has feelings for me. Even if Wolf Saint Dharma were to deal with you on the spot, it's merely to make you reveal the whereabouts of the thunderclap incantation." Not sure if he was trying to convince Yi-Ching Luo or himself. Yi-Ching Qian's voice had no confidence at all. Her eyelashes fluttered as she stared at the alluring Yi-Ching Luo, whose shoulders were half exposed. The more uneasy she felt. It was because she had taken the initiative to climb onto the Sacred Wolf Technique's bed that she had gained the Sacred Wolf Technique's favor. It could be said that the Wolf Saint was obsessed with her body. But if the Wolf Saint Technique was also infatuated with Yi-Ching Luo's body and couldn't bear to kill her, then what should he do? The uneasiness in her heart made Yi-Ching Qian unable to witness Wolf Saint Technique doing such a thing to Yi-Ching Luo in front of her. Just as Yi-Ching Luo and the Wolf Saint Technique exchanged a few rounds, Yi-Ching Luo was suppressed by the Wolf Saint Technique to the extent that she had no room to retaliate, and when she was pushed against the wall corner, Yi-Ching Qian finally couldn't hold it in any longer. She got up with Yi-Ching Ling's support and said eagerly, "Yi-Ching Luo, you'd better tell me everything that the Wolf Saint Technique wants to know." At this moment, Wolf Saint Technique's hand had already tugged open the crimson robe that Yi-Ching Luo was wearing. Hearing Yi-Ching Qian's words, his hands paused. Yi-Ching Luo vaguely discovered that in the eyes of Wolf Saint Technique, a trace of joy flashed past. Joy. Yes, it was joy. She was not mistaken. Was the Wolf Saint Dharma rejoicing that Yi-Ching Qian had stopped his actions? This knowledge made Yi-Ching Luo's heart heavy. She heaved a sigh of relief when Yi-Ching Qian stopped the Wolf Saint Technique's following actions. But at the same time, it also gave her a lot of pressure. Although, this was the first time he had seen the Wolf Saint Technique. But Yi-Ching Luo was very clear that Wolf Saint Fa's character was absolutely arrogant and disobedient. Even if it was the King of Darkness, he wouldn't necessarily listen to orders. However, he was still able to sit firmly on the position of holy technique in the dark forces. It must have something to do with his powerful strength. Yi-Ching Luo had a deep understanding of his power in the battle. Such an arrogant and despotic saint technique that did not play by the rules. Yi-Ching Qian's words could easily sway him. The joy in Wolf Saint Magic's eyes was obviously because of Yi-Ching Qian's obstruction. She cared about him. She didn't want him to touch other women. Therefore, he stopped what he was doing. Wolf Saint Dharma's concern towards Yi-Ching Qian indicated that he would kill himself for her. Even if he had to destroy the King of Darkness's plan, he would have to do so. Even if he couldn't get the whereabouts of the thunderclap technique. As long as Yi-Ching Qian opened her mouth, he would definitely take action. Yi-Ching really did not expect. This 40-over-year-old middle-aged man was a man who could be Yi-Ching Qian's father. It was a bone-deep love for her. However, Yi Qingqian didn't realize that she was afraid of losing Wolf Saint Fa's backing and had opened her mouth to stop him, which made Wolf Saint Fa mistakenly think that she was deeply in love with him. Yi Qingjian racked her brains to dissuade Yi Qingluo. Don't you still have the Overlord? Don't you want to be chased for his majesty? Di emotion. Chapter 1097. She would not let the Holy Wolf technique succeed. Even if he were to die, he would never let the Wolf Saint technique taint her body. She couldn't tell him the thunderclap spell either. Otherwise, it would implicate Old Man's song. The matter of the Azure Dew bracelet would also be known to the people of Nirvana Realm. He saw Yi Qingluo had an obvious reaction when she heard Dmo Xian's name. Yi Qingjian continued, "No one can stop Wolf Saint Magic's decision, not even his lordship. For the sake of our sisterhood, I will give you this piece of advice." Yi Qingluo pursed her pink lips, seeing that Wolf Saint Fa had already let go of her shoulder. His gaze fell onto Yi Qingqian without blinking. She immediately tightened her clothes. For Yi Qingqian's sake, Wolf Saint Dharma should not make a move on her for the time being. He thought that Yi Qingqian was jealous. If he really loved Yi Qingqian, he would definitely not make a move on her at this moment. The Wolf Saint Law wanted to know the whereabouts of the Thunderclap incantation, so for the time being, he wouldn't take her life. And with Yi Qingqian around, he had no way to use such despicable methods to force her to say it out. Then, he would definitely bring her out of the tunnel and into his territory. As long as there was a chance to leave the barrier, it should be no problem for him to teleport away with Chi-Chi. As expected, seeing Yi Qingjian using her emotions and reasoning to persuade Yi Qingluo to reveal the whereabouts of the Thunderclap incantation, Wolf Saint technique could no longer suppress the ecstasy in his heart. He laughed heartily. He didn't bother about Yi Qingluo's side. To him, pinching Yi Qingluo to death was as easy as pinching an ant. Yi Qingqian's face turned pale when she saw him rushing towards her. She thought that he was blaming her for ruining his plans. However, after the Wolf Saint technique approached her, he reached out and wrapped his arms around her soft body, burying his head in her neck. The middle-aged man in his 40s smiled like a young man who just had his first awakening of love. That hearty laughter was something that Yi Qingqian had never heard in these few days that she had been accompanying him. Wolf Saint Dharma didn't care about Yi Qingling beside him. He didn't bother about Yi Qingluo, who was stuck to the corner of the wall, thinking of ways to escape. He directly clasped her lower jaw and kissed her on the lips, strong and domineering, fervent and unrestrained. Instantly, the style became fiery hot. Not far away, Yi Qingluo could hear Yi Qingqian panting from being kissed or moaning from the Wolf Saint technique. Yi Qingling blushed as she listened and moved aside awkwardly. Yi Qingluo was expressionless as her thoughts were all on how to escape from the tunnel. In any case, the Wolf Saint technique would never be interested in performing a live broadcast, so be it kissing and touching. Once he was aroused, the Wolf's sacred technique would naturally want to leave the tunnel in a hurry. At that time, she could seize the opportunity to escape. About the time it took to burn half a stick of incense, the Wolf Saint technique's blood was already surging. He couldn't wait to do Yi Qingqian on the spot. Yi Qingqian's clothes were also in a mess. Her clothes hung loosely on her body. She looked extremely flirtatious. Wolf Saint Dharma pulled Yi Qingqian into his arms, his eyes filled with longing. Immediately, he carried Yi Qingqian and was about to leave the tunnel. Yi Qingqian was still rational. Her little hand grabbed the front of Wolf Saint Technique's clothes and reminded in a sweet voice, "Wolf Saint Technique. Yi Qingluo is still here. She is very cunning." Her voice paused as she sensed the burning hot body that was sticking close to her stiffened. Yi Qingqian reacted and realized that she was still calling Yi Qingluo's name under such circumstances. Her motive was too obvious. Chapter 1098. Wolf Saint Magic rubbed Yi Qing Qian's head. She didn't know if he believed her words or not. He turned around and walked towards Yi Qing Luo's direction. Yi Qing Luo forced herself to calm down. Everything was going according to her expectations. As long as the enchantment was released and she left this tunnel, she would be able to escape. Devil Class's students were still waiting for her. The competition was still waiting for her. She must rush back. She must not let her brother fight alone. The oppressive pressure covered the sky and covered the earth. Wolf Saint Magic's huge palm directly clasped her head. The pain made her head feel like it was about to split open. In a blur, she heard Wolf Saint Magic's cold sneer. Other than Lord, there is no one else who can escape from this Saint Magic. He was a sly old fox. How could he not see through Yi Qing Luo's plan? Trying to escape? He wanted to see how she was going to escape after he knocked her out and brought her away. Yi Qing Luo clenched her teeth as blood oozed out from her lips. But she still couldn't withstand the attack of the pain, causing her consciousness to be in a mess. Her eyes gradually turned blurry. Bam! A loud sound was aimed at Yi Qing Luo's head. Wolf Saint Magic, who wanted to knock her out, suddenly hugged the disheveled lady in his arms and quickly retreated. A burst of majestic, profound chi, like a raging wave, covered the sky and attacked Wolf Saint Magic. The entire tunnel's ground started to crack as gravel flew everywhere. Wolf Saint Magic dodged in a panic, carrying another person in his arms. After retreating out of the attack range, he staggered and almost fell to the ground. The hurricane dispersed, revealing a tall and slender figure. A blood-red robe, like a burning flame. Wolf Saint Magic frowned as he looked in shock at the man who walked into the tunnel. His expression suddenly changed. It's actually you. Losing the support of Wolf Saint Magic, Yi Qing Luo's entire body went limp as she fell backwards weakly. Vaguely, she felt a powerful energy force that forced the Wolf Saint technique away. Following that, her body was brought into a warm embrace. A refreshing and serene aura lingered in the air. Her tense nerves, tensed-up petite body, finally relaxed slowly. Her head rested in his arms. There was a faint smile at the corner of her eyes, showing that she was at ease. "Ah Xian, you're here." Her "Ah Xian" still rushed over. Just when she thought she was really going to be taken away by the holy wolf technique, it appeared in front of her like a god. Her "Ah Xian" was here. They would definitely be able to leave safely, because Ah Xian was her god. The man who was hugging her froze when he heard her mumble his name. His handsome brows furrowed slightly, showing some impatience. I never thought that the dignified Death God Castle's castle master would actually come to such a small place. Wolf Saint Fa recognized the man in front of him at first glance. To be able to wear such a demonic and enchanting blood-red brocade robe in such a cold and noble manner. A man who was always expressionless, like an iceberg. There was only one Death God Castle Lord, Zhu Wu Xian. Could it be that this lofty and unyielding young lass is your woman? Wolf Saint Technique squinted his eagle eyes as he looked at Zhu Wu Xian, who was hugging Yi Qing Luo's waist tightly. Zhu Wu Xian didn't reply. He only lowered his eyelids silently, looking at the messy clothes in his arms. Her ears were forced to bleed by Wolf Saint Technique's strong, profound chi pressure. His dark and gloomy eyes were gradually covered with a layer of frost. You heard her, for in different words, but it was filled with an extremely cold chill. Chapter 1099. Zhu Wu Xian didn't look at the lady in Wolf Saint Dharma's arms. He pursed his thin lips as his indifferent eyes were filled with chilly emotions. Silently, a powerful aura was emitted from his body. Wolf Saint Dharma's expression changed. You want to fight with me? Zhu Wu Xian ignored his shock and astonishment as he changed his posture and held Yi Qing Luo in his arms. He used his own actions to answer Wolf Saint Dharma. His blood-red robe fluttered like a huge red dragon, baring its fangs and brandishing its claws. A ray of profound light erupted from his body as it lingered in his palm. Without hesitation, it struck towards Wolf Saint Dharma's face. This aura was extremely pressurizing. Wolf Saint Dharma avoided it, but still didn't retaliate. Only his eagle eyes were deep as he fixed his gaze on Zhu Wu Exan. Are you serious? Whoever hurts her will be an eternal enemy. Spitting out these few words indifferently, Zhu Wu Exan's palm continued to move, and the entire tunnel instantly fell into a never-ending hurricane profound light. That intense pressure made Yi Qing Luo's spirit root unable to stand still. Her entire body was swept up by that hurricane and fiercely smashed against the uneven wall. Wolf Saint Dharma protected the screaming person in his arms as he opened up his profound qi to form a semicircle barrier in front of him. It blocked the raging hurricane and Xian Qi outside. Although Yi Qing Qian's profound grade had been transformed by the profound In Qi and had already advanced to the earth profound grade. But this body's innate talent was still stuck at the profound grade. At this moment, Zhu Wu Exan didn't show any mercy as his powerful and majestic force enveloped the entire tunnel. Yi Qing Qian couldn't withstand this kind of pressure at all. Immediately, a mouthful of blood was sprayed onto Wolf Saint Dharma, splattering his entire face with blood. Yi Qing Qian's face turned pale as she trembled to help him wipe his face and open her mouth to apologize. But the current hurt didn't even have the strength to open her mouth. That powerful airwave constantly squeezed her 5 viscera and 6 bowels. She didn't have any strength to move at all, not to mention raising her hand to help him wipe his face. Wolf Saint Dharma held her little hand, and a gentle burst of profound energy was injected into her body. It protected her heart meridians to prevent it from being shattered by Zhu Wu Exan. Zhu Wuxin's actions angered the wolf sacred technique. His eagle eyes were deep, and his face was filled with anger. Death God Castle's castle master, are you declaring war on me? Yes. His answer was straightforward and decisive without any hesitation. His indifferent eyes were devoid of emotion. He was clearly doing something extremely heartwarming. However, she couldn't sense any emotion from him. Even when he looked at the girl in his arms, the coldness in his eyes did not fade. This made the Wolf Saint technique a little confused as to what Zhu Wuxin was thinking. Wolf Saint technique listened to his unhesitant reply and instead fell into deep thought. Making an enemy out of Zhu Wu Exan in this situation was extremely unwise. Where exactly did this Zhu Wuxin come from? Even his lord had no way of knowing. He only knew that this man who had mysteriously become the castle master of Death God Castle, his strength was not inferior to the master of the imperial palace, Dizun. Compared to the Death God Castle's castle master, he had a powerful and mysterious background. However, no one knew his true identity. Even his lordship was willing to cooperate with Zhu Wuxin. If he really became enemies with Zhu Wu Exan, the collaboration between the Dark Forces and Death God Castle, it was definitely impossible. Chapter 1100. After Yi Qing Luo rested for a moment, her thoughts gradually cleared up. In his daze, he seemed to have heard the Holy Wolf Technique's words. She couldn't help but frown slightly. She tried to open her eyes, which were still a little heavy. She wanted to focus and listen to what they were talking about. The Dark Forces had sent an invitation to Xian. Did the Dark Forces want to cooperate with Imperial Palace? What ambition did Xian have? Does he want to be like the Dark Forces and unify the Nirvana realm? No, that's impossible. This thought had just flashed past her mind and was immediately denied by Yi Qing Luo. If DMO Xian wanted to unify the Nirvana realm, it would be a piece of cake. Of course, the premise was that the people from the upper realm would not intervene in this matter. However, it was only her personal feeling. DMO Xian did not have the ambition to unify the Nirvana realm. Otherwise, how could he have abandoned the matters of the Imperial Palace and wandered around her? A truly ambitious person would not be like this. Suddenly, a cold voice floated over his head. If you hurt her, the cooperation is invalid. This voice was not Dmo Xian's voice, but the familiarity made her body stiffen. Immediately, the splitting headache and heaviness in his eyelids disappeared. This was Zhu Wuxin. The embrace she snuggled into was Zhu Wuxin's embrace. This person was not Dmo Xian. Yiqing Luo suddenly stretched out her hand as she pushed Zhu Wuxian's chest. "Let go of me." However, Zhu Wuxin hugged her even tighter, almost as if he wanted to knead her whole body into his. He did not speak, but the action made Yiqing Luo furious. His struggling movements became more and more ferocious. Wolf Xingfa, who was standing not too far away, curled his lips in disdain when he saw this. "Castle Lord of Death God Castle, you've done so much for her, but this little girl doesn't appreciate it all." Zhu Wuxin, who had been expressionless, suddenly raised his head. His calm and emotionless eyes now revealed a biting cold, killing intent. It seemed to be warning the Wolf Saint to shut up. Wolf Saint Technique was stunned by her gaze as he stared at the struggling Yiqing Luo for some time. Suddenly, he laughed out loud. Indeed, the word love was the greatest calamity in the world. No matter how strong a man was, he had to submit to the word love. Unexpectedly, Zhu Wuxin, who had always been cold and arrogant, was so arrogant. He was actually willing to sacrifice himself for a woman without asking for anything in return. At this moment, Yiqing Luo's hand was grabbing onto Zhu Wuxian's collar while the other hand was pressing against his chest as she bellowed in an evil tone. "Zhu Wuxian, let me go. Where are your hands touching? Take it away." She didn't notice the Holy Wolf Technique's words at all. Zhu Wuxian seemed to have lost his patience and loosened his grip slightly. Just as Yiqing Luo was about to escape from his embrace, she heard a cold voice ringing beside her ear. "If you don't want others to see your body, don't move." Yiqing Luo was stunned. This voice sent a chill down her spine. Then, he came to a realization. She lowered her head and looked at her messy clothes. His clothes, which had been shaken off by the Wolf Saint Technique, were already scattered around his waist. Her thin undergarments revealed half of her shoulders, revealing a small pocket embroidered with cherry blossoms. In the process of struggling, it became more and more scattered. Zhu Wuxin hugged her tightly, but it was only to cover her exposed skin. Yiqing Luo gave an "ah" as her face instantly flushed red. She let go of Zhu Wuxian's collar and speedily pulled up the loose clothes around her waist, pulling it over her body. Just at this moment, the Holy Wolf Technique took the opportunity, when Zhu Wuxian had no time to care about himself, to bring Yiqing Luo away. Zhu Wuxian's gaze turned cold as he raised his palm to create a hurricane, blocking the Holy Wolf Technique's path. Because of this action, Yiqing Luo's undergarments scattered even further. She instinctively leaned into Zhu Wuxian's embrace, using this to block the exposed spring scenery. Chapter 1101. Brother D, the barrier has been unlocked. A clear and melodious voice that sounded like a silver bell rang out from outside the tunnel. Wolf Saint Law, who was about to rush out of the tunnel, was blocked by Zhu Wuxian's hurricane. He turned to the side to avoid the hurricane, but bumped into a soft body. "Ah!" The melodious voice cried out in pain as she fell to the side. A strong and powerful arm gently supported that lady. It was just a casual support, and after she stood firm, he retracted his hand. However, that lady took the opportunity and directly snuggled into that arm, hugging his waist tightly, not willing to let go. Wolf Saint Law was stunned. When he saw the tunnel entrance and the person who walked in, his expression was filled with shock. The person who walked in was dressed in a purple, luxurious robe. Because of the hurricane, his sleeves fluttered in the wind, creating a stream of light. A head of black hair, not tied up or tied, casually scattered over his shoulders. He looked extremely casual and extremely lazy. What was even more breathtaking was that peerless face of his. His long and narrow demonic peach blossom eyes seemed to bear all the splendor of the world, sparkling with an intoxicating luster. However, there was a hint of chilliness in his eyes. Overlord, Wolf Saint Law recognized the man who was known as a legend in Nirvana realm at one glance. He hugged Yi Qing Qian and retreated a few steps as he looked at Mo Xian vigilantly. He had heard about Mo Xian and Yi Qing Luo's relationship from Yi Qing Qian. One was Zhu Wuxian, and the other was Mo Xian. A little girl had actually attracted the attention of two great experts, and both of them had gathered here. But the current situation was a little interesting. So interesting that he temporarily didn't want to bring Yi Qing Qian away and wanted to stay to watch the show. Yi Qing Luo's hand, which was holding onto her robe, paused. She heard a lady's gentle voice. That voice was very familiar. It was the voice which had appeared several times in her dreams, making her heart surge with uneasiness. Subconsciously, she turned her head stiffly and looked towards the direction of the voice. She froze on the spot with this one look. Her body completely tensed up as her pupils dilated. At the entrance of the tunnel, the hurricane dispersed, revealing that peerless figure. Yi Qing Luo's gaze met with that pair of chilly peach blossom eyes. It was like a bottomless pool. Mo Xian, he came. He came with his own face. Not Senior Mo, but Mo Xian. Brother D. Sensing the man beside her gradually turning cold, the woman tugged at Mo Xian's sleeve as she called out softly. Yi Qing Luo's vision then followed the voice and fixed onto that lady. Just one glance, and Yi Qing Luo felt as though she had been struck by lightning as she fell into a daze in Zhu Wuxian's arms. His mind was blank. His taut nerves began to crack one by one. Her mind was filled with the image of that woman. She didn't even notice that she was still in Zhu Wuxian's arms and had already forgotten about the Wolf Saint technique that was not far away. Nestled in Mo Xian's arms, that jade-green figure had soft curves. She was curvy where she should be, draped in a jade-colored soft muslin. She looked as elegant as a fairy. Her glossy black hair was tied into a unique bun with an exquisite golden hairpin. The face was so beautiful that it could make one's soul swoon. Coupled with that gentle-looking, yet like a little dragon girl, cold and pure temperament, it made this lady look even more alluring. Her beauty was different from Yi Qing Luo's ostentatious and enchanting beauty. Her beauty was extremely tranquil, making one feel pity for her. Chapter 1102. More importantly, Yi Qing Luo had seen this lady before. In the profound pagoda's test of strength, the second stage was the resentment stage of the gates of hell. He had seen this woman before. In the dreamland, Mo Xian and Miss Feng were known as the Golden Boy and Jade Girl, a match made in heaven. That Lady Feng whose beauty was second only to Mo Xian. She was actually a real existence. Moreover, with Mo Xian, he was really so familiar with him. Mo Xian did not like others to touch him. He would never come into contact with anyone else. But, however, he took the initiative to wrap his arms around a woman's shoulders. He allowed her to nestle in his arms. As Yi Qing Luo looked on, her eyes faintly revealed a chilly glint. That position should belong to her alone. Apart from her, no other woman was allowed to approach that position. But he in front of her, she allowed another woman to occupy the position that belonged to her. She was still the same woman who made her feel uneasy from the bottom of her heart. Their eyes met, and they stared blankly at each other. No one broke the silence. That lady's beautiful eyes roamed around, as it moved back and forth between Mo Xian and Yi Qing Luo for a moment. Pursing her red lips, her gentle eyes gradually dimmed. Then, she smiled and pretended to be surprised. Brother D, did you call me here to break this barrier to save these two? That smile was devastatingly beautiful. She was like a pure and untainted fairy, holy and elegant. This must be Brother D's friend. They look like a good match. As she spoke, she covered her lips with her slender fingers and chuckled. There was a tinge of envy in her tone. To be able to go through thick and thin together in the most dangerous times, this kind of relationship is so enviable. A good match? Share weal and woe? Envy? Yiqing Luo's ears were filled with that lady's words. She looked away and suddenly realized that she was still nestled in Zhu Wuxin's arms with her clothes in a mess. He couldn't help but laugh out loud. Was this a prank from the heavens? The timing of Dmo Xian's arrival was just that coincidental. Her clothes were disheveled, and she was in the arms of another man. He held the beauty in his arms, watching her in another man's arms. How ironic. That lady was still saying something, but Yiqing Luo had no mood to continue listening. Perhaps it was because of the situation in the illusion, she had a natural aversion to that woman. As she listened to the woman's voice, she felt an indescribable sense of irritation. The woman's words were obviously meant to sow discord between her and Dmo Xian. A woman's intuition was always very accurate. The love rival in the illusion had become a reality. What should she do to protect her feelings? Yiqing Luo took a deep breath, trying her best to calm her emotions down. He could not afford to lose his composure. Otherwise, his love rival would laugh at him. The first thing he had to do was to maintain a distance from Zhu Wuxin and tidy up his clothes. The next step was to prepare for the attack of his love rival. No matter what, before Dmo Xian expressed his stance. This man belonged to her. Of course, even if he expressed his position, her man was still her man. She left Zhu Wuxin's embrace expressionlessly. Yiqing Luo slowly tidied up her clothes and combed her messy long hair before walking out from the corner. Zhu Wuxin remained silent. Yiqing Luo walked directly towards Dmo Xian. Her expression was calm as her pink lips curled into a sweet and bewitching smile. Finally, she stood 2 steps away from Dmo Xian. She raised her eyes and met his gaze. His gaze was deep, pitch black like the abyss. Just one look made her sink into a bottomless abyss with a sliver of cold intent. Chapter 1103. That lady was stunned as her gorgeous face revealed a tinge of astonishment. She blinked her beautiful eyes blankly, showing an innocent look. Immediately she raised her eyes and looked at Dmo Xian. Brother D, Who is she? While speaking, she still held on to Dmo Xian's hand and had not moved away. Hearing Yiqing Luo's words, Dmo Xian then realized that the lady beside him was almost sticking onto his body. Dmo Xian's brows creased slightly as he stretched out his hand to pull Feng Ling away. A fair little hand was even faster than him. Slender 5 fingers directly clasped onto Feng Ling's arm. With a little strength, she directly pulled Feng Ling and pushed her to one side. Feng Ling cried out in pain from his grip. Her eyes instantly turned red as she cried out pitifully, "Brother D." Unexpectedly, her weak and pitiful look was like a weak little grass in the wind. She didn't get any response from Dmo Xian. At this moment, Dmo Xian's deep eyes were fixated on Yiqing Luo. As though in his world, there was only Yiqing Luo, and only Yiqing Luo could be seen. Yiqing Luo was filled with disgust towards Feng Ling, naturally towards her pitiful look. She didn't have any sympathy. She directly walked to Dmo Xian's side and stood at the position where Feng Ling was standing earlier. Her lips curled as she gave Feng Ling an extremely enchanting and provocative smile. Immediately, she turned back. Slender wrist hooked onto Dmo Xian's neck. Using a little strength, she pulled his head downwards. Dmo Xian cooperated by bending his waist. Yiqing Luo tiptoed, and her pink lips covered his thin lips. Their lips touched, and her wrist hooked even tighter. Her soft petite body fell into Dmo Xian's arms. She opened her mouth and aggressively left a bite mark on his lips. Dmo Xian's long eyelashes fluttered as he felt astonished by this little lady's action. Immediately, his heart was filled with ecstasy, because he saw Yiqing Luo snuggling into Zhu Wuxian's arms. The moment she took the initiative to kiss his lips, declaring her sovereignty, it all disappeared. Hugging her slender waist tightly, Dmo Xian immediately turned from passive to active. The tip of his tongue forcefully pried open her lips, her pearly white teeth. Just as he was about to enter, the fair little hand on his chest suddenly exerted force. Dmo Xian was caught off guard and was pushed away by the little woman. A silver line appeared at the corner of their lips. Yiqing Luo's cheeks blushed slightly, but her expression remained composed. He quirked his eyebrows and stared at Wind Chime's exquisite face, which alternated between red and green. As if she hadn't had enough, her pink tongue swept across her lips, sweeping the obvious silver strands into her mouth. His voice was hoarse and full of charm. "Tell me, who am I?" Windling staggered a few steps back as if she had suffered a huge blow. Her small face instantly turned pale, and her small body trembled violently. It was as if he was going to faint in the next second. Her eyes reddened, and she trembled as she asked, "Brother D." Dmo Xian still did not look at Feng Ling. His gaze had always been fixated on Yiqing Luo, looking at her enchanting smile and coquettishly licking her lips. That look of wanting more after tasting him made an inexplicable flame surge to his lower abdomen, causing his body to tense up. His little Luo air, was she jealous? That was why she deliberately pushed him away when he wanted to taste the delicious taste of her own accord. Was she punishing him? He had to admit that this punishment was extremely torturous for him. The flame surging in his lower abdomen. As a man, a normal man, Dmo Xian naturally knew what was going on. This was the fire that little Luo air had stirred up. Chapter 1104. Dmo Xian's disregard towards Feng Ling had pleased her. Yiqing Luo glanced sideways at that man with gloomy eyes as she gave a light humph. At least he knew his place. If he still went to talk to Feng Ling, or if he pretended that nothing had happened, pulled her along, and introduced Feng Ling to her. She gave a kick and sent Dmo Xian up to the sky, shoulder to shoulder with the sun. Glancing at that petite little beauty, she looked like she was about to cry. Yiqing Luo's smile deepened as her soft body once again snuggled into Dmo Xian's arms. Her slender fingers caressed that mesmerizing face as she smiled like a flower. "Ah, Xian, tell her, who am I?" Feng Ling's beautiful eyes revealed an astonished look. She staggered a few steps back again. Stepping on a piece of gravel, her body immediately fell backwards. She subconsciously stretched out her hand towards Dmo Xian, "Brother D." However, that man's gaze, which was filled with warmth, didn't even notice her. That pair of peach blossom eyes, which she loved so much, reflected Yiqing Luo's figure completely. In his eyes, there was no room for anyone else. Bam! Feng Ling crashed against the uneven wall as the sharp gravel pierced through her skin. Fresh blood instantly stained her green dress. She held back her tears as she looked at Dmo Xian. Coincidentally, she met Dmo Xian's gaze. Feng Ling immediately burst into tears as she leaned against the wall and trembled. "Brother D, it hurts." Xiaoling, she is the future mistress of the Imperial Palace. Feng Ling was stunned as she stared at Yiqing Luo in disbelief. The future mistress of the Imperial Palace? Which meant Dmo Xian was serious? Dmo Xian wanted to marry this woman? No, impossible. Feng Ling didn't care about the pain and blood gushing out as she rushed towards Dmo Xian. Her hands tried to grab Dmo Xian's arm as she asked anxiously, "Brother D, are you joking? Grandma will not let an unknown lady become the mistress of the Imperial Palace." Her hand had yet to touch Dmo Xian's hand. Dmo Xian had already hugged the person in his arms, avoiding her touch. Taking half a step back, he stood firm. His gaze was dark and cold. He stared at wind chimes quietly, and his emotions were calm. "Young Ling, I'm the master of the palace." The ice-cold tone was like a silver needle that pierced into her heart. Feng Ling held her breath. Her swaying body went limp, and she knelt on one knee on the ground. His face was filled with a look of being unable to withstand the blow. Xiaoling, you're a smart child. Don't try in vain to use your grandmother to pressure me. Finished speaking, he moved his gaze away. Fengling looked at him. Looking at the way he looked at Yi Qing Luo, the obvious pampering and tender feelings in his eyes. This was an emotion she had never seen in his eyes before. It turned out that he also had such a gentle side to him. He was Dmo Xian, the almighty Dizun. Even the sect masters of the 4 major sects and the rulers of the 4 continents had to bow and show him respect. But he allowed Yi Qing Luo to humiliate him in public. He allowed Yi Qing Luo to do whatever she wanted, taking the initiative to kiss him in front of everyone with a look of joy on his face. He allowed Yi Qing Luo to leave a mark on his lips with a delighted expression. He allowed countless of them. She had been following behind Dmo Xian since young and admired him for a whole 10 years. How could she not tell? Dmo Xian really loved Yi Qing Luo, the kind of love that went deep into the bone. Based on what? Based on what she had guarded for 10 years, became Yi Qing Luo's man. The person Dmo Xian should fall in love with was her. Resentment and bursting possessiveness surged out from his eyes. Chapter 1105. Dmo Xian's attitude towards Fengling and the words, "She will be the future mistress of the imperial palace," had completely pleased him. Her long and narrow eyes were tinged with a smile. Leaning into his arms obediently, Yi Qing Luo didn't struggle any further. His gaze moved past wind chimes and landed on Wolf Saint Technique, who was watching the show by the side. A hint of a smile appeared at the corners of his lips. Wolf Saint Technique, have you watched enough? The Wolf Saint Technique lowered his gaze and looked at the person in his arms. As who are seen enough? Yi Qing Qian bit her lower lip tightly. She expressed that this scene was not going according to the script she had in mind. When Dmo Xian saw Yi Qing Luo nestled in another man's arms, shouldn't he be infuriated and then fight with Zhu Wuxin? Or, when Yi Qing Luo saw Dmo Xian carrying another lady, shouldn't she be infuriated, then create a ruckus with Dmo Xian and force him to leave? Why did the relationship between the two of them seem to be even more intimate? Yi Qing Luo didn't wait for Yi Qing Qian's response as she smiled sweetly. Since you've seen enough, then the debt between us should be settled. Yi Qing Qian's face turned pale as she shrank into Wolf Saint Technique's arms. How do you want to calculate? Wolf Saint Magic's large palm caressed Yi Qing Qian's back, silently comforting her. His malicious eyes looked towards Yi Qing Luo. He secretly pondered the situation before him. Chu Wuxian and Dmo Xian were apparently here to save Yi Qing Luo. In other words, as long as Yi Qing Luo opened her mouth, Chu Wuxin and Dmo Xian would definitely be seething with anger. Xian, what do you think I should do? Yi Qing Luo raised her brows as she hooked her arms around Dmo Xian's neck and asked with a smile. Dmo Xian gently stroked her hair as his deep black eyes gazed deeply at her. There was a smile at the corner of his mouth, and there was a doting smile on his face. His little Luo was using her connections to intimidate others. However, he liked it, to be able to become Lil Luo's backer. He was extremely happy to let Lil Luo use her power to intimidate others. This was also the manifestation of little Luo's increasing reliance on him. This was a good sign. Dmo Xian couldn't help but pinch her pretty nose. Looking at her proud expression, it made him want to press her against the wall and kiss her lips. His gaze caught a glimpse of those scars on Yi Qing Luo. His pitch-black eyes, which were like whirlpools, suddenly focused. His fingertips brushed past the red mark on her neck. His ice-cold voice echoed in the quiet tunnel. "If I hurt you, I'll destroy the Wolf Saint's forces. What do you think, little Luo?" Wolf Saint's faction. That was the sphere of influence of the Wolf Saint technique among the dark forces. When Lang Xingfa heard this, his expression changed greatly, and he blurted out in shock, "You! How could you?" Everything related to the dark world was their secret. For example, the four great saint techniques. Outsiders had no way of knowing. However, DMO Xian actually knew about Wolf Saint's forces. Did he know that it belonged to his territory? Could it be the dark forces also had DMO Xian's men? This thought caused Lang Xingfa's face to turn increasingly ashen. He didn't want to stay any longer. Hugging Yi Qian tightly, he flew towards the entrance of the underground tunnel. DMO Xian's lips twitched sinisterly as his purple robe fluttered. Profound qi was like a surging air wave, swallowing the mountains and rivers. It instantly covered the entrance of the underground tunnel. Previously, it was Wolf Saint Technique who forcefully stopped Yiqing Luo from leaving the underground tunnel. Now, the cycle had reversed. Wolf Saint Technique wanted to leave, but he couldn't. Chapter 1106. Destroy the Wolf Saint's forces. It was equivalent to sneaking into the Dark Forces and making the Wolf Sacred Force history in the territory of the Dark Forces. Such a thing was simply impossible. But DMO Xian just played it down like that. That's what he would say. He must have full confidence that he could do it. This debt would be settled with the Wolf Saint's forces. She did not lose out. The Wolf Saint Law's eagle eyes were gloomy and frighteningly gloomy. Dizun, Fort Master, I'm sincerely trying to negotiate peace with you, yet you're being so overbearing. Do you really want to start a war in the Nirvana realm? DMO Xian didn't say a word as he gazed deeply at Yiqing Luo, as though waiting for her response. It was the same for Chu Wuxin. Totally ignoring the presence of DMO Xian, his icy cold eyes stared straight at Yiqing Luo. It seemed as though he only needed a single word from her. Even if it caused a war in the Nirvana realm, he would not hesitate to do so. His gaze was completely emotionless. His stare made Yiqing Luo shiver. DMO Xian's brows creased slightly, and when he saw Zhu Wuexin's gaze, his expression suddenly turned gloomy. His arm slightly exerted strength as he clasped Yiqing Luo's waist tightly as he leaned close to her ear and gave a low laugh. Looks like even if I didn't come today, you would still be able to leave this place. Yiqing Luo wanted to cry, but had no tears. Just now, she had been so aggressive and jealous of him and Feng Ling, but now, she immediately deflated. Her little hands wrapped tightly around DMO Xian's sturdy waist, and her little head rubbed against his chest. How can that be the same? He's just a stranger I don't know. You're my man. With that, she raised her head and rested her chin on his chest. She blinked her charming eyes and stared at his smooth chin. I'm in danger. Naturally, I hope that you will come and save me. Her voice wasn't too loud, but it was definitely not small. Especially in this narrow tunnel, it was especially clear to Zhu Wuxin's ears. The words of stranger I don't know struck him the chest, one word at a time. There was a sharp pain. He collected his gaze as his cold eyes fixated on Yiqing Luo's gentle and tranquil side profile. She looked into DMO Xian's eyes. When she looked at him, he looked so familiar. That gentleness in his memories, she had also given it to him. However, she couldn't remember. After having DMO Xian in her memories, she was just a stranger I don't know. As Zhu Wuxin twitched his stiff, thin lips in disdain. He was still expressionless. However, there was a faint trace of almost imperceptible pain in those ice-cold eyes. Standing there, he looked like a joke. He closed his eyes. The expression on Zhu Wuxin's face was still calm, without any ripples. He took a step forward and directly walked past the two people who were arguing with each other and walked out of the tunnel. No one stopped him from leaving, until his figure completely disappeared at the entrance of the tunnel. The Wolf Saint Fa's heart finally calmed down a little. Zhu Wuexin gave up on avenging Yiqing Luo. Then, there was only DMO Xian left. At least, it was better than offending Zhu Wuxin at the same time. With this in mind, the Wolf Saint technique gained some confidence. He looked at DMO Xian and said calmly, Overlord, This saint will not hurt that little lass, but it's to settle the debt on behalf of my woman. He placed her down and lifted her head, revealing the wound at the bottom of her neck, even though he had applied ointment to stop the bleeding and the pain. But that pinch mark where the dagger had sliced the flesh was extremely obvious. Comparing it to Yi Qing Luo's injury, she had merely suffered some superficial injuries. Chapter 1107. All in all, Yi Qing Qian's injury was obviously more serious. Yi Qing Luo couldn't help but laughed out loud. You settle the scores for your woman, my man settled the scores for me. This is very fair. How are you being overbearing? Wolf Saint Fa was speechless. The era of relying on one's father was over. What she needed now was her own man. Yi Qing Luo felt that the feeling of hugging her man's thigh was not bad at all. At least when she saw Wolf Saint Fa's expression. She felt great. Yi Qing Luo raised a finger and pointed at Yi Qing Qian, smiling extremely innocently. The most important point is that she kidnapped my brother. She couldn't bear to hurt her brother. But under Yi Qing Qian's incitement, Yi Qing Ling hurt him to that state. Talking about settling the scores. Did he have a right to settle the scores with her? Yi Qing Luo's eyes suddenly sunk as a chilly intent flowed from the bottom of her eyes. With a flip of her palm, a strong surge of profound qi surged into her palm. Zzz, the sound of electric current scuttled in Yi Qing Luo's palm. That electric current shone brightly and dimly, illuminating the entire tunnel. Gradually, it formed into a ball shape. Dmo Xian stared at that electric current ball as his pupils congealed. The shock in his eyes couldn't be concealed. Thunderclap arts. 3 words blurted out. Yi Qing Luo was still creating the thunderclap when she heard Dmo Xian's voice. She glanced sideways and looked at him. What's the matter? Dmo Xian remained silent for a moment as he raised his hand to rub her hair. His thin lips slowly curled upwards. The power of the thunderclap arts is extremely powerful and is divided into 10 levels. If the thunderclap arts is cultivated to the 10th level, 1 thunderclap arts is enough to destroy an entire city. Yi Qing Luo's eyes widened. Thunderclap arts actually had such a powerful destructive power? Why hadn't old man Song mentioned it to her? Little Luo always gives me a surprise. Dmo Xian bent down and inched closer to her ear as he said in a low voice, but if there's no emergency, try not to use the thunderclap arts. Yi Qing Luo narrowed her eyes. His words reminded her of Wolf Saint Fa's fervent gaze when he saw the thunderclap arts. He even used such despicable methods to force her to reveal the whereabouts of the thunderclap incantation. He then remembered that he had used teleportation to attract the attention of the ghost doctor and god pirate. Could it be that the reward for clearing the purgatory tower were they actually secret arts that had been passed down for a long time? However, that was indeed the case. Whether it was teleportation or the thunderclap incantation. If outsiders were to find out about the power of these 2 secret techniques, it would probably stir up the entire Nirvana realm and crazily plunder the manuals of these 2 secret techniques. Just as she was deep in thought, the Wolf Saint technique suddenly formed a barrier for himself. Shortly after, his 2 palms split open an oppressive aura, causing the ground to be filled with gravel. Dmo Xian instinctively protected Yi Qing Luo. Using his own body, he helped Yi Qing Luo to block those gravel attacks. Take this opportunity. Wolf Saint Dharma hugged Yi Qing Qian tightly and rushed toward the entrance. Trying to escape, Yi Qing Luo's eyes turned cold. The pain that Xiaoyu had suffered is yet to be repaid. None of you can think of leaving. The gravel scattered, and Yi Qing Luo swiftly pushed Dmo Xian away. The lightning ball in her hand was like a falling lightning, breaking through the air. A sizzling sound was heard, accompanied by the sound of breaking through the air. The speed was extremely fast, and in just a blink of an eye, it had already attacked Wolf Saint Dharma. A miserable shriek was heard. A petite figure was coincidentally struck by that lightning ball. The electric current flowed through the petite girl's body. Boom! A loud explosion was heard. The electric current exploded, and that petite figure was instantly blasted into pieces. Chapter 1108. DMO Xian's first reaction was to pull Yi Qing Luo into his arms. His broad body enveloped her completely in his embrace, leaving no gap between them. As for wind chimes, she did not manage to escape in time. Her flesh exploded, and her body was covered in blood. There was a lot of minced meat that hit her face directly. The strong smell of blood made her stomach churn. Holding onto the wall, she couldn't help but vomit. The sound of blood splattering on the ground gradually subsided. DMO Xian then slowly released Yi Qing Luo's slender waist. The pungent smell in the air and the blood and minced meat all over the ground indicated that the scene earlier was not an illusion. She looked up at the entrance of the tunnel. There was no sign of Wolf St. Law. Yi Qing Luo narrowed her eyes. Her long, curly eyelashes moved. Let them escape again. She didn't expect Yi Qing Qian to be so ruthless. Just now, at the moment when her electric ball was about to hit Wolf St. Law. Nestled in Wolf St. Law's arms, Yi Qing Qian suddenly released her profound qi and sucked Yi Qing Ling into her hands. Immediately, she threw Yi Qing Ling towards the direction of the electric ball without hesitation. Although the first level of the thunderclap technique could only create a fist-sized electric ball, but the power of this electric ball was enough to make this tunnel and this abandoned temple collapse. The electric ball hit Wolf St. Law. Such a powerful and arrogant man, it wouldn't take his life, but it could restrict his movements. Not to mention, now that she had become an ordinary human, she could only use the jade flute to control the magical beasts. The electric ball's power fell on Yi Qing Ling's flesh and blood. Yi Qing Ling had no ability to resist, directly turned into minced meat. So what if he ran away? DMO Xian caressed the person in his arms disapprovingly. What I said earlier was not a joke. That sentence? Yi Qing Luo looked up and looked into his deep, inky eyes. Instantly understood. He said to destroy Wolf Saint's forces. This sentence was not a joke. He really wanted to destroy Wolf Saint's forces in the Dark Forces? Yi Qing Luo pursed her pink lips and snuggled into his chest. Will it be dangerous? I won't. He smiled reassuringly. With you around, I can't bear to put myself in danger. This sentence, word by word, struck her heart heavily. This man, he purposely stabbed her with his words. He was blaming her for being alone in danger. Yi Qing Luo remained silent for a moment and obediently rubbed her face against him. I'm sorry, Xian. There won't be a next time. DMO Xian lowered his eyes and looked at the person in his arms. That extremely tender face was so obedient that it made his heart ache. After staring at her for a while, he held her face and gently kissed her lips. I don't believe this sentence. Before she could finish her sentence, she was swallowed whole by him. Yi Qing Luo's petite body turned soft as she was kissed senseless. All right, she didn't believe that there wouldn't be a next time either. When Yi Qing Luo was about to suffocate from the kiss, DMO Xian finally released her in satisfaction. His smooth jaw slowly rested on her shoulder. His warm breath caressed her ears. Seeing the little woman's ears turning red, he couldn't help but leaned forward and kissed her. His low and hoarse voice was filled with desire that made one blush. Little Luo, looks like I have to leave a mark on you so that I can grasp your direction anytime and anywhere. Yi Qing Luo's eyes were like silk as she coquettishly stared at him and pouted her little mouth in a coquettish manner. Pervert. Chapter 1109. A single voice could make her face flush red and her body go limp. Yi Qing Luo's eyelashes fluttered as her little hand pushed his chest. Xiaoyu should be back at Westlawn Square. Everyone is still waiting for me to return. Stop fooling around. Today's first round, they won't have any problems. DMO Xian's long arm locked her slender waist and refused to let go. Yiqing Luo's cheeks blushed slightly. We still have to rush back. Who knows what methods the dark forces will use? DMO Xian still refused to let go. Before this, you better think about how you're going to explain to me about the matter between you and Zhuwu Xin. Yiqing Luo pursed her pink lips and turned her little face to the side. Aren't you still with other women? So, we need time to be alone. DMO Xian's thin lips curled up, smiling like a sly fox. Yiqing Luo pondered for a moment and continued to struggle. You're the master of the main courtyard. If you don't appear at the competition venue for a long time, it will make people suspicious. Don't worry, I have my ways. DMO Xian's slender fingers pressed against her lips. You're evading like this, I'm starting to suspect if you and Zhuwu Xin are. No. Yiqing Luo stared at him furiously. With a "if you dare to continue speaking, I'll bite you to death" look on her face. She gave a light snort and slapped away DMO Xian's palm. She pointed to the little kitten who had already shrunk to the size of a palm, and Chi, who was cozily nesting in the enchantment. Break the enchantment and leave this place first. The room was filled with corpses, and the smell of blood was strong. If she stayed here any longer, her sense of smell was going to stop working. DMO Xian caught her mischievous little hand and shot a glance at the woman who was leaning against the wall while vomiting. He spoke in a calm voice. Xiaoling, undo that enchantment. Fengling's face was pale, and her eyes were red. Because he was heartbroken. It was also because he had vomited too hard just now. Her beautiful eyes were misty with tears. If an ordinary person saw her like this, their heart would definitely clench, and they wouldn't bear to see such a sad expression on her face. However, she was facing a Yiqing Luo who hated her to the core. One was DMO Xian, who did not put her in his heart, even though Wenqing cried her heart out. Perhaps the two of them would not even say a word of comfort. Just like now, even though Fengling was in a sorry state with Yiqing Ling's blood and flesh stuck on her body, looking pitiful, DMO Xian was still emotionless as he stated his request. To DMO Xian, he asked Fengling to rush over from the Imperial Palace. It was all for the sake of sensing the powerful barrier of the West Wave Continent and breaking it. It was that simple. Brother D. Fengling looked at DMO Xian in disbelief. She was already in such a sorry state, and he didn't even say anything to comfort her, and even ordered her to save Yiqing Luo's war pet. Why are you still in a daze? DMO Xian didn't seem to notice Fengling's emotions. Of course, other than Yiqing Luo's emotions, the others had nothing to do with him. Fengling clenched her fists and raised her face stubbornly. She stared at him with tearful eyes. Brother D, aren't you being too cruel? Pucci. Yiqing Luo couldn't help but burst out laughing. Seeing that both of their targets were on her, her lips curled as her finger poked DMO Xian's chest and teased. Did you hear that? Little beauty said you're cruel. DMO Xian narrowed his long and narrow peach blossom eyes as he looked at Fengling with his deep black eyes. An oppressive deterrent was slowly released from his body. Chapter 11:10. Big teardrops rolled down from the corner of Fengling's eyes. Her petite body trembled as she leaned against the wall to barely support herself. Why? Fengling pursed her red lips as tears blurred her vision. DMO Xian frowned as his brows revealed an obvious impatience. If it wasn't for the fact that he was in a hurry to find Yi Fengyu's whereabouts, so that Yiqing Luo could participate in the interclass competition in peace, he wouldn't have specially called Fengling over. If it wasn't for the fact that Fengling's persistence towards him had not been extinguished over time, even if he exhausted 3 levels of profound energy, he wouldn't call Fengling over. It wasn't that he couldn't sense or break the enchantment barrier by searching for the dark force's sacred arts. It just needed some time. It needed to consume his own profound energy. He was worried that the dark forces would make use of Yi Fengyu to threaten Yiqing Luo. Therefore, he specially called Feng Ling, who was extremely proficient in enchantment barriers and had the innate talent to sense the existence of enchantment barriers. It turned out that his worries were right, but he would rather use 3 levels of profound energy to deal with Feng Ling. DMO Xin couldn't be bothered to talk nonsense with Feng Ling. He loosened his arm around Yi Qing Luo's slender waist and whispered gently, "Wait for me." After that, he walked towards Chi-Chi's direction. Standing in front of Chi-Chi, his eyes narrowed as he moved his palm to condense profound chi to break the enchantment barrier. Behind him, a fluorescent light flashed. That fluorescent light fell on the enchantment barrier, trapping Chi-Chi. The transparent barrier emitted a dazzling light. Once, twice, the enchantment broke, and the little fellow who was as white as a cat suddenly leapt up and stepped on DMO Xian's shoulder. Its furry little tail swept across DMO Xian's face. "When did you fall in love with this kind of battle pet?" Feng Ling opened her palm, and that fluorescent light that broke the enchantment barrier returned to her palm. Finally, it landed on a sparkling and translucent jade stone in her palm. When the fluorescent light completely subsided, Feng Ling slowly closed her palm and placed the jade stone against her chest. When she opened her hands again, the jade stone had disappeared. DMO Xian gently stroked the little cat on his shoulder and withdrew his profound energy as he turned towards Yi Qing Luo's direction. As he turned, his cold voice rang indifferently. "Because this is her battle pet. Because it belonged to Yi Qing Luo, that was why he liked it. Because Yi Qing Luo liked it, so he liked it too." Windling was stunned on the spot. Her hands hung limply by her sides. In her mind, she recalled that many years ago, when she was undergoing special training arranged by her grandmother, she had caught an extremely cute magical beast. It was a fox beast. It had a sharp mouth and long, evil eyes. No matter how she coaxed it, the fox beast ignored her. Just like the unapproachable DMO Xian, little Feng Ling excitedly brought the fox beast and rushed into the meeting hall, interrupting DMO Xian and Grandma's discussion about the imperial palace. However, she was mercilessly pushed away by him. In front of Grandma, he said indifferently, "I hate this kind of thing." Yes, he hated beasts and battle pets. Even after that, he had contracted Little Nine. He also did not get too close to Little Nine. But now it was a tiger beast and a weak-looking tiger cub. She stepped on his shoulder with a big stab. He did not get angry. Instead, he smiled gently. He was smiling so gently at a battle pet, but he was so cold to her. He did not hate beasts or battle pets. He only hated her. Feng Ling's thoughts drifted far away. She saw the man whom she had been infatuated with for 10 years was already holding another woman and walking towards the entrance of the tunnel. Chapter 11:11. Wind Chimes was delighted. He still had her in his heart. He would not abandon her like this. A smile blossomed at the corner of his mouth. Because he stopped in his tracks, all the grievances from before vanished in a thin air. She quickly jogged towards DMO Xian's direction. "Brother D, I knew you. Go back to the palace by yourself, or Afon will send you back." DMO Xian looked at her indifferently, without a trace of emotion in his eyes. Saying that, he had already turned around and hugged Yi Qing Luo as they walked out of the tunnel. A tiger's roar cut through the sky. In the blink of an eye, the surroundings fell into a dead silence. As she stood in the tunnel that had long since been reduced to ruins, corpses, blood, and flesh, Wind Chimes suddenly felt very cold. That kind of bone-chilling, heart-wrenching cold. Unable to bear it, she hugged herself and squatted down, trembling. He didn't know how long he had been sitting there. Then he heard the faint sound of footsteps. She looked up happily. "Brother D," his smile froze on his face. The person opposite her revealed a sinister smile. "Miss Feng, why are you crying so sadly? Dizun really doesn't know how to take care of women." Feng Ling's beautiful eyes froze. She raised her hand and wiped away the tears at the corners of her eyes. She immediately stood up and looked at the person in front of her warily. "What do you want to do?" The man's smile grew colder. "Of course I'm here to help you." "Help me?" Wind chimes snorted coldly. "Do people from the underground know how to help others?" The person in front of him was none other than the wolf Saint Law who had left and returned. He squinted his eagle eyes as if he could see through people's hearts. He stared into Feng Ling's eyes and said, "Don't you want to be the venerable sovereign?" Feng Ling's expression changed. "What do you mean?" "Miss Feng is smart. You should understand what I mean." The wolf Saint technique laughed in a profound manner. "How about it? Is Miss Feng interested in cooperating with this Saint technique?" Chi-Chi's speed was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, the two of them had already stopped in front of the dormitory. The empty old house was quiet. It was time for the interclass competition. Everyone had already rushed to Shilan Square to watch the competition. The two of them entered Yi-Ching Luo's room, but didn't meet anyone. Knowing what to do, Chi-Chi entered the pet space on its own and shut off all sight and hearing. It was a tiger. It had no interest in dog food at all. The minute they entered the room, Yi-Ching Luo was pressed against the table by Mo Xian. He pinched her chin and bit down harshly on her lips. "Lil Luo, it's just the two of us now. If you confess, you'll be lenient. If you resist, you'll be strict." His long and narrow peach blossom eyes shone brightly. It dazzled Yi-Ching Luo for a moment. She blinked her eyes and wrapped her arms around his neck. Her lips curled up. "I should be the one saying that." Their eyes met, and the temperature inexplicably rose. His lips covered hers again. The warm touch and the overbearing and powerful strength locked her in place. Her cheeks were flushed red. Her delicate body softened and turned into water. Before she knew it, he had already carried her onto the mahogany table and kissed her. It was forceful and domineering, as though he was going to swallow her up. After a long while, looking at her flushed face, Mo Xian finally stopped. His hoarse voice whispered softly beside her ear. "She's called Feng Ling, the granddaughter of the Imperial Palace's granny. She has been by my side since young." "Yo, childhood sweethearts. Both of you are young and innocent." Yi-Ching Luo rolled her eyes as she said in a sour tone. Chapter 11-12. Yi-Ching Luo scoffed arrogantly, but she leaned into Mo Xian's embrace and changed her position. Mo Xian raised his hand and said in all seriousness, "I swear, I have absolutely no intentions towards her." Yi-Ching Luo continued to snort and continued to act Sundara. Mo Xian's eyes were filled with adoration. He loved her delicate look. He couldn't help but lower his head and kiss her red and swollen lips. He pressed his forehead against hers and said in a low voice, "If you don't believe me, you can check my body to see if there are any traces of her." His tone was filled with a naughty smile, and his shimmering peach blossom eyes were also flashing with an evil luster. Yi-Ching Luo instantly blushed as she gritted her teeth and spat out two words. "No. Use it." Of course she knew that Mo Xian had no interest in Feng Ling. If she had any thoughts, she wouldn't be the one acting like it's Sundara right now. She simply wanted to be Sundara, who told him to hold Wind Chime's shoulders when they were in the tunnel, and even let Wind Chimes hug his waist. His embrace could only belong to her alone. "In my place, there's only you." As though he had seen through her thoughts, Mo Xian narrowed his peach blossom eyes and said in a low voice. That low and hoarse voice sounded extremely serious. His deep, pitch-black eyes stared at her without blinking. Yi-Ching Luo's little face blushed as she subconsciously lowered her eyes and turned her head away. Her lower jaw was held by his slender fingers, forcing her to meet his gaze. "At that time, when she fell, I just helped her up," Mo Xian patiently explained. "When I was helping her up, I saw you in Zhu Wu Xian's arms with your clothes disheveled." He paused for a moment. He felt the little woman in his arms stiffen. The corners of his lips curled into a sinister smile. "At that time, did you think I was still in the mood to pay attention to Xiaoling?" Seeing Yi-Ching Luo's clothes in a mess, nestled in Zhu Wuxian's arms. It looked so intimate and ambiguous. Even though deep in his heart, he knew that Yiqing Luo and Zhu Wuxian could not possibly have any special relationship. However, when he saw that scene, he still could not suppress the fury in his heart. The wind chimes were not important, so he did not pay attention to them at all. His mind was filled with the scene of Yiqing Luo and Zhu Wuxian hugging intimately. Yiqing Luo still maintained her arrogance as she snorted. It was just a verbal tsundere. However, her actions revealed her current mood. She struggled free from the restraint of his fingers and rubbed her blushed little face against Dmo Xian's chest as her arms wrapped tightly around Dmo Xian's waist. The more Dmo Xian looked at her tsundere look, the happier he was. Yes, his little Luo's arrogant look only belonged to him alone. Dmo Xian tightened her arms, and her petite body was completely plastered onto his body. Between the two of them, there were only 2 layers of clothes that were not too thick. Yiqing Luo's soft chest pressed against his sturdy chest. It was very soft to the touch. Dmo Xian suddenly recalled the last time after the battle in King Ling's tomb, when he helped Yiqing Luo apply medicine. He saw everything about Yiqing Luo. Actually, his little Luo had everything she needed. This size was just enough for him to control with one hand. But the moment he thought of this, his lower abdomen tightened. Dmo Xian's pupils contracted as he increased his strength once again. Ugh! Yiqing Luo moaned in pain as her slender brows creased as her little hand pushed his chest. Ah, Xian, you're hurting me. Her words had just ended when she was pressed onto the red wooden table. The man's scorching hot body was tightly plastered onto hers. Chapter 11:13. Ah, Xian. Yiqing Luo's breathing suddenly stopped as her little hand blocked in between the both of them. A rich man's breath encircled Yiqing Luo's body. Her entire body turned soft as her little hand's resistance was totally useless. But moments later, her little hand was restrained by Dmo Xian. The man's hot and wet kiss landed harshly on her lips. Her breath seemed to be sucked away, making her feel numb as though she was electrocuted. Yiqing Luo's petite body was trembling. Even if she had never eaten pork, she had seen a pig run. Moreover, this wasn't the first time Dmo Xian had lost control. She naturally understood what that asterisk on her abdomen represented. Her cheeks turned even redder from embarrassment. A man's desire really came at the drop of a hat. It was no wonder that people often said that men use their lower body to think about life. This wasn't the first time she stopped Dmo Xian. Yiqing Luo didn't know how long a man could hold it in. She was after all a 21st generation person, and since she had already set her mind on Dmo Xian, she would definitely follow him for the rest of her life. Even if she allowed things to happen and let nature take its course, that was a normal thing. But she retracted her gaze as she hid away her flustered and indulged heart. Her little hand pushed against his chest. At this moment, she couldn't let things develop naturally, because her brothers were still sweating and competing in the arena. How could she possibly be at ease with Dmo Xian here? Her motive for coming here was to resolve the mutual misunderstanding with Dmo Xian. Xian calmed down. Just as his lips were about to press against hers again, Yiqing Luo opened her mouth and bit his thin lips harshly. Dmo Xian loosened his grip as he propped himself up. His eyes were filled with passion, as deep as the water. He stared at her as his movements stopped, but his body was still pressing on her in an overbearing manner. With Zhu Wuxian, it's a misunderstanding. Yiqing Luo tried her best to change the topic as her breathing was hurried and her little face was flushed red, not daring to look at him. That soft and charming little voice was trembling. After the deep kiss, it was mixed with a seductive voice. Under Dmo Xian's tranquil peach blossom eyes, which made one sink into it, Yiqing Luo finally managed to concisely explain how Wolf Saint Method found out about the Thunderclap manual and how he used despicable methods to force her, and how she was saved by Zhu Wu Xian. In the end, she looked at him helplessly with her slightly moist eyes. I stuffed them into his arms because I wanted to use his body to gather my clothes first. Who knew that you would be so coincidental and come here the right time? DMO Xian felt his lower abdomen tightening. His Lil Luo just by showing such an expression, he could not control his desire. Towards Lil Luo he seemed to have no self-control at all. He knew the reason why Lil Luo was rejecting him now. Under such circumstances, even if he couldn't restrain himself, he wouldn't go all the way. You really don't know Zhu Wu Xian? DMO Xian lowered his head as he followed along with her topic. Yiqing Luo's long eyelashes fluttered. I really don't know him. Qing Luo's character. Zhu. Of? DMO Xian remained silent for a long while before he spoke in a low voice. Even if it's a subordinate who had followed him through life and death for a few years, at the critical juncture, he would not hesitate to abandon them. Humans are not plants. How can they be emotionless? Even for him, facing the 4 protectors who had followed him for many years and risked their lives for him several times, he would at least say a few words of concern. He would never give up their lives. But Zhu Wuxin could. For someone like Zhu Wuxin, there was no one else in his life other than himself. Yet, he was so concerned about Yiqing Luo. Chapter 11:14. During the World Mercenary Group's first mission. If it wasn't for Zhu Wu Xian, Yiqing Luo wouldn't be able to successfully bring the exquisite pagoda out of Death God Castle. It was totally impossible. Those youngsters from the World Mercenary Group were able to leave unscathed. Zhu Wu Xian had intentionally let them pass. Whereas this time round, Yiqing Luo was in danger and Zhu Wu Xian didn't hesitate to go against the dark forces. Based on Zhu Wu Xian's character, how could he possibly harm his own benefits for others? To push himself into a dangerous situation? But Yiqing Luo said that she didn't know Zhu Wu Xian. DMO Xian naturally believed Yiqing Luo's words, but he didn't understand that Zhu Wu Xian's performance. Apparently he knew Yiqing Luo and there was some past between them. Had Zhu Wu Xian recognized the wrong person? Thinking of this, DMO Xian's black eyes slowly narrowed. You don't believe me? Seeing DMO Xian's silence, Yiqing Luo's brows creased as she stared at him unhappily. DMO Xian suddenly held her waist tightly. The other hand, his broad palm, followed along her waist and slowly moved upwards. She could clearly feel the scorching temperature through her thin clothes. 5 fingers cover the loins. A pinch. Yiqing Luo's petite body trembled. He bent down and bit her earlobe. A deep magnetic voice with a hint of anger rang by the side of her ear. You're my woman. If I don't believe you, who should I believe? Yiqing Luo's little hand frantically pressed his hand, which was moving around the loins as she spoke in a trembling voice. I'm wrong. I'm wrong. I know you believe me. What's wrong? DMO Xian's slender legs slightly exerted force as he pushed open the little woman's tightly shut legs. His thin lips curled upwards, looking devilishly alluring. Yiqing Luo's body froze. If this went on, be careful of the second mishap. If this went on, the one who would suffer would be him. Ah Xian. Yiqing Luo's gentle voice was extremely soft. Are you sure you want to use this position to talk to me? DMO Xian's brows rose slightly as he gave an evil cold smile. Why? I'm only in charge of stirring up the fire, not in charge of extinguishing it. Yiqing Luo's brows rose as her eyes curved, revealing a teasing look. Indeed, the man on her body stiffened. After several breaths of silence, he stiffly propped himself up and moved away. His face, which had a devilish smile on it, instantly turned ashen. Good. Very good. This was little Luo, She knew how to trick him. Yiqing Luo, who had escaped from DMO Xian's restraints, swiftly bent her waist and retreated a few steps away from him. She blinked her long, curly eyelashes and said, "Xian, the misunderstanding has been explained. It's time to go to the West Lawn Square." He looked as innocent as he could be. DMO Xian lowered his eyes and looked at the lower abdomen, the indescribable place. The corners of his mouth curled up into a sinister smile. The next moment, Yiqing Luo's body felt light as she fell into DMO Xian's arms once again. She didn't even have time to react. In her eyes filled with ridicule, DMO Xian's peerlessly handsome face was magnified. Xian, his aggressive gaze was scorching. That naked gaze seemed to be looking at her naked body. Suddenly, he bowed his head. He nibbled on her swollen lips. He bit down hard, just like how she had bitten him. An obvious bite mark was left. Yiqing Luo cried out in pain as she raised her fist and hammered on his chest. The man released her slender waist at the right time. His half-squinted peach blossom eyes outlined a devilish, charming arc. He laughed lightly as he gazed at Yiqing Luo's eyes, which were like glistening gems, its luster bright. His thin lips parted as he said word by word, "I'll owe you this time. Next time, extinguish the fire, I'll do it." Chapter 11:15. Fine. This was very beastly. Yiqing Luo admitted defeat. She blushed as she pushed DMO Xian away and left the room without looking back. DMO Xian lowered his head as his eyes were filled with adoration. He could only wait for the next time. He had just taken a step and was about to catch up with Yiqing Luo's footsteps to head to the West Continent with her to support the students of Devil Class. His footsteps just stepped out of the room. The wind blew and brought along a trace of strange sound. His perceptive power was instantly released. At the same time, Yiqing Luo, who had just walked out of the room, flashed back to DMO Xian's side. The blush on her face had long faded. Right now her expression was grave as her brows knitted tightly as she looked into DMO Xian's eyes. From the other party's eyes, she confirmed her own perception. There were people, and there were many of them, and their profound grades were not low. The entire dormitory was filled with an extremely dangerous atmosphere. West Continent Public Square. The Heavenly Academy's interclass competition was still ongoing. The first round of the preliminary round was not for all the students to rush onto the arena. Instead, it was done by drawing lots. Each class would send out 10 people as a team, and according to the results of the drawing lots, the 10-people team would represent their class and compete against the other 10-people team. In other words, the 7 classes would be divided into 7 teams of 10 people, through drawing lots to decide which class would be matched against which class. The winning team of 10 people would represent their class and enter the next round. In previous years, the Heavenly Academy's interclass competition was 6 classes and 6 teams, which were easy to allocate. This year, there was an addition of Devil Class. 7 classes, 7 teams of 10 people, which meant that there was an additional team which could not be allocated to an opponent. For this interclass competition, there were many external forces and representatives for various schools. In order to show his concern for the Waste class, the director had instructed Yun Duan. Yun Duan represented the director to express preferential treatment for Devil Class. The first round of drawing lots would be a break for Devil Class. After the 6 classes had competed, the winning 3 teams of 10 people plus Devil Class would draw lots for the showdown. The class which won the last 10-people team could skip the semifinals and enter the finals. Because of this, today's competition was extremely important, because the competition was divided into 3 days. Within these 3 days, they had to participate in the competition every day. How much profound energy would be depleted? Without the miraculous elixirs given by the family, the profound Jade Heart's energy could not be replenished. But if he won today's match, he would directly enter the finals. This also meant that he did not need to participate in the semifinals tomorrow. This also meant that the class that won today could recuperate and build up their strength, waiting for the finals on the third day. After explaining the rules, Cloud was ready to start. Long Yunjian took a step forward at this moment. His azure blue eyes looked emotionlessly at Yun Duan. Elder Yun Duan, I'm Long Yunjian, the class monitor of the Devil class. On behalf of the Devil class, I sincerely thank the Dean and the Elders for their concern towards the Devil class. Her clear and cold voice spread out with profound energy. Cloud's announcement of the start of the match was swallowed back. He looked at Long Yunjian and frowned slightly. He didn't understand what the Devil class was trying to do. Yun Xiang's temper flared up as he said unhappily, "Since you're grateful, then be obedient and return to your Devil class's waiting area. Give up the arena to the class that's about to compete." Chapter 11:16. Once he said that, the entire audience was in an uproar. Many powerhouses started to complain about how Devil class did not know what's good for them. As for Low Profound Class 1 and Intermediate Profound Class 2, there were students who started to complain on the spot. The Dean sympathizes with your trashy class, so that you won't have to waste the rare opportunity to participate in the interclass competition. He wants you to stay in this arena a little longer, so he specially gave you special treatment. You actually dare to refuse? Trash class is trash class. Even their intelligence is so touching. The crowd was in an uproar. When Yin Duan heard that, he was stunned for a moment. Maybe he could not understand why Devil class would reject such a good treatment. Coincidentally, from the direction of Intermediate Profound Class 2, a scornful voice came. What's there to guess just based on the looks of Devil class's trash? They're obviously afraid of receiving special treatment, but in the end, they will still be easily defeated, losing all their face. With that said, the students from each class nodded their heads in realization, expressing their agreement. Receiving special treatment, but still being defeated by a team that had gone through a competition, was utterly defeated. It was indeed quite embarrassing. Student Shangwan is still smart, seeing through the nature of Devil class with one look. Devil class, coming to participate in the interclass competition, is already a joke. Seeing them participate in the competition, it's simply making us laugh our teeth off. That's right. If this kind of preferential treatment was given to our class, the ones who could enter the finals today would definitely be our class. In a class, there are all kinds of complaints, all kinds of discussions sparse. Suddenly, they heard Long Yunjian's ice-cold voice, easily suppressing the clamor and clamor. Then I'll give it to your class. A few light words, said without any emotion. That person was stunned, his face full of astonishment. After a while, he reacted. Long Yunjian was answering his own words. This person happened to be one of the students from Low Profound Class 1. You're for real? Low Profound Class 1 naturally wanted this preferential treatment. Other than Devil class, their class was the worst class in the entire academy. If they had this preferential treatment, entering the semi-finals shouldn't be a problem. At least they wouldn't be eliminated in one match, and at least they could save their face. Long Yunjian did not reply to that student. Instead, he raised his cold blue eyes and looked at Yun Duan indifferently. Elder Yun Duan, thank you for your kindness. I represent the Devil class and am willing to hand over the preferential treatment given by the Academy to that class. His tone was cold and emotionless. However, his attitude was sincere and serious. Yun Duan looked at the dean. After seeing the dean nod his head slightly, he slowly turned his head. The purpose of the interclass competition is to understand the overall standard of each class and the individual strength of the students. Since this is the Devil class's own decision, the Academy will naturally respect the Devil class's choice. This preferential treatment will be given to the Low Profound Class 1. After the announcement, the other students had no objections. The competition had officially begun. The first round of drawing lots. Low Profound Class 2 versus War Devil class. The second round of drawing lots. Intermediate Profound Class 2 against High Profound Class 1. The third round of drawing lots. High Profound Class 2 versus Intermediate Class 1. Looking at the wooden stick in his hand, it matched the wooden stick in Devil Class's hand. The students of Low Profound Class 2 revealed a look of joy. Without Low Profound Class 1, they would be at the bottom of the class. If they were to go against Intermediate Profound Class or High Profound Class, they would definitely lose. But the students of Low Profound Class 2 looked at Devil Class's side. Although they looked to be in high spirits, it was obvious that after standing for so long, the students were swaying. Chapter 11-17. Without Yi Qing Luo in the Devil Class, they were simply a bunch of trash. They were already trash, and yesterday they were ambushed and suffered a serious injury. Today they forced themselves to participate in the competition, and it had only been half an hour, and they couldn't even stand properly. Yet they still wanted to participate in the competition. The students from the Low Profound Class 2 all sneered in disdain. And in the Low Profound Class 2, Tao Zi knitted her brows in worry. The news of Yi Fengyu being kidnapped in the dormitory was known to the entire school. And today, Yi Qing Luo also disappeared. Was she looking for Yi Fengyu? Or was she kidnapped like Yi Fengyu? This thought flashed past. She shook her head. Impossible. If Yi Qing Luo was really kidnapped, the students from Devil Class would not be so calm in the competition. Yi Qing Luo. She should have gotten news of Yi Fengyu and rushed over early in the morning. Hopefully, Qing Luo would be safe and come back earlier. Low Profound Class 2's class monitor had already begun to pick 10 students to form a 10-man team. When passing by Tao Tao, the class monitor paused for a moment but still brushed past her. Although they knew that Tao Tao was the group leader of the 3,000 Peach Blossom and her ability was considered above average in the Low Profound Class 2. But Tao Tao and Devil Class's Yi Qing Luo's relationship seemed to be not bad. In order to avoid any accidents, the class monitor still didn't choose Tao Tao. The first round of the competition began. All the students returned to the waiting area. Long Yunzhan chose a few students who were below average in the Devil Class. 8 boys and 2 girls. Ni Ruo Pan and Dan Baishu were among them. The moment the gong was sounded, the Low Profound Class 2's attack was already coming. The Devil Class students panicked and screamed. Each of them were like ants on a hot pan, fleeing in all directions. There wasn't any intention to cooperate with their comrades. The entire arena was filled with the Low Profound Class 2 students chasing after them. The Devil Class students covered their heads and fled. Wails and screams were heard incessantly. The scene looked extremely lively. It attracted a lot of people below and kept laughing. This situation lasted for about half an incense stick of time. The Low Profound Class 2 students were out of breath from the chase. Some students stopped, pointed at the escaping Devil Class students, and ridiculed in disdain. A bunch of cowardly turtles. Don't run if you have the ability. Why are you running? Look at your cowards. Still want to participate in the competition? What a disgrace. I thought that with Yi Qing Luo, you would be able to ascend to the heavens. Trash is trash. Watch us beat you bunch of trash into a pulp. However, the students of the Devil Class totally ignored their curses. He was still screaming at the top of his voice as he fled. Mocking laughter and screams filled the air. It was extremely lively. Gradually, the high-level profound practitioners who were spectating the battle noticed that something was wrong as they laughed and laughed. The awkwardness on the faces of the elders and the dean also faded away. Everyone's vision was placed on the Devil Class. Devil Class's students were indeed in a sorry state as they screamed miserably. But as far as the eye could see, not a single one of the 10 Devil Class students had been hit by the attacks from Low Profound Class 2. None of the students were hurt. On the other hand, the students of Low Profound Class 2 were bursting with confidence, constantly chasing and releasing their profound chi. Gradually, he was exhausted. He also realized that he had used up too much Xian Qi. A few of the students from Low Profound Class 2 kept the Xian Qi in their palms and blindly chased after the Devil Class students. Several times, they had already caught a Devil Class student who was running around randomly. They were about to defeat him with one palm strike. But inexplicably, they were collided with by another student. The cycle repeated. Chapter 11:18. A few Low Profound Class 2 students ran until they were out of breath. Don't think that it was just the time it took to burn a stick of incense. But following the Devil Class students, they ran all over the arena. It was even more tiring than running 5 laps around the Heavenly Academy's public square. While running, they constantly circulated the power of their profound Jade Heart and released their profound Qi in an attempt to restrain the Devil Class students. In this way, they had already overdrawn their physical strength. A Low Profound Class 2 student stopped to rest. Following that, some students also stopped to rest, and some directly fell to the ground, panting heavily. Anyway, these Devil Class students were not able to stir up any waves. Other than being able to run, they had no other advantages. Let the other students catch up to the Devil Class students first. A few of the Low Profound Class 2 students had the same thought. Immediately, no one stood up. On the arena, there was such a situation. 10 Low Profound Class 2 students, 2 were sitting on the ground, 1 was lying on the ground, and 1 was panting heavily with both hands on his knees. The other 6 students took heavy steps as they chased, panting and shouting, "Outflank! Outflank them! Outflank! How could it be easy?" The Devil Class students ran in all directions without any order. They had no way of determining which direction the 10 students from Devil Class were running towards. The arena was circular. No matter how they tried to outflank them, the Devil Class students would always have a chance to escape from their encirclement. The scene on the arena was comical. Below the arena, there was an uproar and laughter. What exactly are the Devil Class students trying to do? Instead of running away, they might as well surrender. That's right, it's so embarrassing. Other than running, they only know how to run. It's simply a waste of everyone's time. Devil Class students participating in the interclass competition. It's a joke. Now that I've seen it, it's really a joke. The entire arena was filled with ridicule and ridicule of the Devil Class's pathetic state. There are also people who clicked their tongues and said in astonishment, but to be honest, the Devil Class students are too good at running. They ran on the arena for the time it took to burn a stick of incense. They could still continue to run and scream in high spirits. This energy, compared to the panting, Low Profound Class 2 students, they were indeed too good at running. It was quickly drowned out by the mocking laughter. The students of the Devil Class are all a bunch of trash. Of course, they have to be able to run. Otherwise, if they meet with danger, wouldn't they just die a violent death? I heard that at the back mountain of the dormitory yesterday, the Devil Class students were chased by more than 10 low-level magical beasts all over the mountain. Since they can run so fast, they must have been chased out. Ha ha! The ear-piercing mocking laughter rose and fell. However, in the area where they were waiting for the Devil Class, the dozens of youths did not seem to be able to hear the jeers around them. Their gazes were fixed on the arena without blinking. Looking at the tracks and movements of those 10 people, Yi Zichen felt a chill run down his spine. At this moment, the dozens of youths heard their class monitor's cold and indifferent voice say, "Now." The youths straightened their backs, widened their eyes, and watched even more seriously. In the arena, those Devil Class students who were originally running away suddenly stopped in their tracks at the same time. The 10 students looked at each other. As if by prior agreement, they rushed towards the Low Profound Class 2 student who was chasing behind them. The few Low Profound Class 2 students who were chasing did not expect that the Devil Class students would suddenly counterattack. Before he could react, Chapter 11:19. The position was coincidentally beside the few students who were resting on the ground. Among the devil class students, one of them shouted in a hoarse voice, "Beat them up! Beat them to death!" Just as he finished his sentence, 10 devil class students all rushed towards the low profound class 2 students who were lying on the ground. One by one, the students raised their fists and madly punched the low profound class 2 students, tearing, pulling, waving their fists. That was called messy. That was called crazy. The crowd, cursing in their hearts, black lines on their foreheads, cold sweat all over. One by one, they were speechless. The clamor, the ridicule were all stuck in their throats. This is too bad, isn't it? This scene, why did it look a little like a group of 5-year-old kids fighting over toys on the streets? The low profound class 2 students were suffering unspeakably, crying out in pain. They wanted to struggle, but did not even have the strength to stand up. They wanted to use their profound chi to force the devil class students to retreat. Before they could even take a breath, the devil class students' fists had already landed. After enduring for a full cup of tea's time, the low profound class 2 students finally could not endure this inhumane torture. They struggled in pain and shouted concede, until Yun Duan rang the gong to announce the end of the first duel, announcing the devil class's victory. The devil class students then let go of the low profound class students. 1. The devil class students got a good start, obtained the first victory. Unbelievable. There was no way to believe this was the truth. The devil class students actually defeated the low profound class 2 students. Although the method was a little despicable, a little clumsy, but at least they won, and even forced the low profound class 2 to admit defeat. How is this a competition? The class monitor of low profound class 2's face was ashen. He stood up and said angrily, looking at the countless mocking gazes around, the class monitor of low profound class 2 only felt his face burning. They actually lost to a waste class? Lost to a bunch of waste? And in front of all the powerhouses, all the representatives of the major academies, they were tortured to such a tragic state by a bunch of waste. As students of low profound class 2, how are they going to survive in the nirvana realm in the future? No matter where they went, they would be discussed by all the powerhouses. This would forever be their black history. Dean, we are not satisfied. This is not a competition at all. They cheated. The other students of low profound class 2 immediately stood up and echoed their class leader's words. And Iroha, Pan, wiped her sweat, slowly stood up from the ground. A pair of beautiful eyes looked in the direction of low profound class 2 and smiled coquettishly. All is fair in war, understand? Dan Baishi nodded. On the battlefield, it's not only about absolute strength, but also brains. Your IQ is too low, and you blame us? The devil class students raised their eyebrows. You, the low profound class 2 student, almost rushed into the ring. Low is... Is there a rule that forbids running and ganging up? And Iroha Pan could not help but laugh. If you can't win, run. That's the smart choice. Don't tell me that you, low profound class 2, are just going to stand there and let the opponent beat you? Her tone changed, and she covered her mouth as she chuckled. I'm so sorry. Standing there and letting the opponent hit us is the behavior of a fool. You people from low profound class 2 like to be fools, but we are not. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.